p.m. on September 26th. All members of the planning board being present, call this meeting to order. First item on the agenda, approval of minutes. We have August 22nd, 2022 and September 12th, 2022.
Motion to approve the August minutes, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimous. As to the September 12th.
Motion to approve the September 12th minutes.
Second?
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimous. Moving on to agenda item B, B1 committee reports. Do any of the members have any committee reports they wish to make at this time?
I'll make just a quick report here, Mr. Chairman, if you could give me one second. I just have a correspondence from, as you know, I'm the planning board appointee to the NEMCOG, which is the North Middlesex Council of Governments, and they have a press release here that I have dated the 19th. The NEMCOG is currently seeking public input for the Greater Lowell Economic Recovery and Resiliency Plan, funded by the U.S. Economic Development Administration, and it's designed to support the region's economy by addressing the economic injury caused by COVID-19 and building resiliency for future pandemics and health crises. The ERRP focuses on the key issues: economic development, healthcare, housing, and food security, and identifies 79 actions to build the region's resiliency in these issue areas. And there's a little bit more information there that if somebody's looking for information, you can go on to written comments to Jeff Owen at jowen@nemcog.org. And, possibly I could talk to our planner and see if we can get that on the town website for further information.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, we did have a CPC meeting from the representative of, and we did approve the additional $25,000 from the fund to construct a skateboard park down on Livingston Street. So with the additional funds allocated, they were moving ahead to get their project started. So.
Excellent. All right. Very good. No other committee reports at this time. We'll skip the town planner's report until the town planner comes down in a while. So we'll skip to B3, which is 150 Main Street as-built approval and bond release. All right. I don't think we have anybody for this. There's nobody here for this tonight, right? 150 Main Street as-built. Once, twice. All right. Well, we don't really need anybody for it. So, anybody have any issues with this?
My only comments, Mr. Chairman, would be that it looks great. Town's satisfied with his comments as far as the as-built, and it's good to see this one done and by the boards, and we can get them some of their money back. That's all.
All right. Anyone else? Mr. Fowler?
Thank you. I thought
I see Mr. Lee's here.
The actual plan, I looked at the as-built, and I thought the driveway going in was supposed to have some vegetation to break up in that island, but I don't have it, so I couldn't tell.
Oh, hold on one second. Just slipped in, so you want to come up?
Hello.
How are you? When you get settled?
Fantastic. How are you?
Give me a second.
For the record, Doug Lees from Land Engineering and Environmental Services, here on behalf of the Robert Atamian Realty Trust for the as-built acceptance for the site plan special permit for the construction of the new dealership at 150 Main Street. The work has been done in accordance with the site plan special permit. We've submitted the as-built plan to the town. There's a few items we had to take care of. We submitted it back in 2020, I believe. So those items have all been addressed, and we have a letter from the town engineer saying that the site is is completed, so.
All right, Mr. Fowler had a question. I don't think you heard it on your way in, so if you could just ask.
Out at the driveway, the island on the driveway was supposed to have some vegetation on it. And I don't have a plan, so
Yeah, there
Couldn't
was
compare it.
vegetation in the island, it was planted, it was there. I'm not sure if it didn't get, if it wasn't drought resistant enough for this summer, but there was extensive planting done in that island.
there's nothing on the plan, though.
On the as-built plan?
Yeah.
Yes, we did not locate it. No,
Couldn't locate what?
we did not locate the plantings that were put in.
I don't understand what you mean.
They're not on the as-built plan because we didn't field locate them. We did not identify them. We were locating the drainage and all the curbing.
So
And
the as-built plan isn't complete yet.
I suppose not, if it's required to show the individual plantings that were done. Those are quite an extensive planting, especially in the front island along 38. There were a lot of plantings put in that area.
I understand that. I saw those.
Yeah.
But there's nothing in the island driving in the driveway.
Well, the plantings are there in the island, driving on the driveway. They're just not on the plan.
Okay. So if they're not on the plan and they die, what's someone going to say to you? The plants that are that aren't on the island died.
But they're on the approved plans. They're on the landscape plan.
Yes, but this is an as-built.
Yes,
The approved plan isn't an as-built.
that's correct.
Okay, so what do? It's up to you.
What do I do?
Yeah.
I mean, they do plantings out there that are beyond the scope of the as-built plan and the special permit. Once we get the special permit issued, I mean, it's their landscaping, it's their project, it's their property. They're going to keep it looking nice. It's in their best interest.
Why would they do it if it's not on the plan?
To keep the project looking nice, I mean, it's their site. That's like their building, their parking lot, their dealership, their cars. That's why they do it. And it's required in the special permit that the plantings be there.
Yeah.
It's required in the landscape plan that the plantings be there. The town has the perpetual authority to review the landscaping and the landscape permit. There's a clause in there about reviewing it once it's planted to make sure that it looks sufficient. I don't recall there being any trees in that island. It was
I
all
didn't say
small,
trees.
I know, it's all small shrubberies and plantings.
Correct. And there's nothing on the as-built plan on that island.
You're correct. I don't ever recall locating shrubs, rhododendron, bay lilies, those items. We've located trees in the past on landscape plans, but I don't recall ever locating flowers on an as-built plan.
Rhododendrons aren't flowers. That's a flower.
Right, I don't recall what the,
Rhododendron
right.
is
They're-
8 feet across. Mr. Chairman, if he doesn't know what to say, I'm not going to vote for this.
All right. Anybody else?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I echo Mr. Fowler's concerns. I mean, if the plantings are not complete, then the project is incomplete. I mean, have they been put in and died, or are you going to plan on replanting them again?
The plantings were complete. I mean, I went out there and counted them before he released the landscaper's bond and took pictures of where there was plantings that were needed. And he had the landscaper put those in. But we didn't, I mean, I can go out to the site and sketch them onto the plan. I can walk around and add them to the plan and resubmit the plan.
Well, as you know, we can call you back in if it's not sufficient. So, I mean,
Yeah.
we don't want to do that if that's not, the case. So, but if they're not there, I haven't been down to the site recently, but obviously Mr. Fowler picked up on the fact that the plantings aren't there. So we want the site complete
Yeah.
for yourself and for us as,
Well, I mean, like I said, I did before he released the lands, he had a bond from the landscaper that was to Atamian, not to the town, to put all the landscaping in. And before he released that, he had me go out and make sure that I counted all the flowers and bushes in the front area to make sure they were all there. And I went around, there was a few that had died and a few that had to be replaced. And this was probably back in 2020 when we first submitted the as-built. And that was all done prior to him releasing that landscaper from, their contract. Okay, you did it, great, thank you.
but as of 22, September of 2022, they're not up to par, so I mean,
Well, I don't think Mr. Fowler said they're not up to par, he said they're not on the plan.
That's correct.
He's just saying they're not on here.
And a lot of them, I was talking about a lot of the plantings that are in the islands of flowers, they're not going to be out now, they're perennials. I could add the shrubberies, the bushes, the rhododendrons and what other, the other, I don't remember the species that were planted.
Let me just say this. You hire a landscape architect to draw a plan, and on it, it shows all the plants that are going to be on the plan.
Yep.
If that's not transposed to an as-built, that would tell someone down the road that you never put them in, or they're not required to keep them.
All right, I apologize. I thought this was more of a site plan and engineering as-built, not a landscape
No, no,
as-built.
no.
But if the landscaping needs to be on the as-built plan, I can add it.
It was on the beginning, it was on the original plan.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
okay.
it was on the landscape plan, yeah. All right,
Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, with all due respect for my colleagues, I looked at the plan and, minus a few plantings, I think the as-bills are pretty thorough, and I think that they're substantially complete. I think the applicant has met the spirit and the intent of the law, with a slight oversight maybe on marking out some plantings in an island, and I would say that I would like to go ahead and approve the as-bills.
All right. Mr. Champion, did you have anything?
I have no direct knowledge of the site, so I'm just listening to the comments.
All right. How difficult is it going to be to get the plan in showing the landscaping that Mr. Fowler's talking about?
well, I went out there and I checked that they were all in, so I can add approximate locations to the plan, right off the landscape plan, and drive back out there and make sure they're all still alive. There's significant plantings, especially in the front. Along 38, they did a quite extensive planting in that area. There wasn't that much in the landscape
I
island.
think you're kind of hitting on it, though. Like, that's the thing, is that stuff was meant to be substantial, and it was a big deal about something we did discuss when we did this a lot. So I don't fault Mr. Fowler for wanting to have it
Yeah.
on here, so everything is here the way we expected it to be. So that, again, we're not going off 3 different plans somewhere down the road and having an argument. So, if you can get the revised one in, I don't have a problem with doing this contingent on getting the revised one in. I don't need to drag you back in here again for this.
Yeah.
But I want it on the plan. I mean,
Yeah,
Mr. Fowler's not wrong to ask for it so that we get everything the way it's supposed to be. And, you drop off the plan, pick up your check kind of thing.
Okay, as I said, I did go out there and
As far
check.
as I'm concerned, but, want it on here.
Mr. Chairman, I'd agree to that if he would just say he'll do it.
Yeah,
All right. Good enough.
absolutely.
All right. So with that, then, do we have a motion to approve the as-built plan, subject to its correction?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to accept the as-built plan contingent upon the revised plan showing the full plantings presented at the time of the check pickup.
I'll second that.
All right, motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Mr. Fowler, in or out? Abstain? All right. So motion carries unanimously. As to the approval of the release of the 20,000 bonds, do I have a motion?
So move, Mr. Chairman. Release
I have a
the
second.
bond.
Under the same contingent, obviously.
Yes.
Second.
Motion made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night. All right, moving on. Agenda item C, 30 Commerce Way. This is a continuation of our previous hearings on this. We'll remind or give the petitioners the heads up. Only 4 of us have heard this and can vote on it. Mr. Champo cannot, so there's no reason there's no reason he can't stay.
I reviewed the,
Not this one.
Not
Too
this
many
one,
for this one. But he can stay, right?
Multitude.
Mr. Fowler? Mr. Fowler? He can stay,
Yes.
but I don't think he can ask questions because he can't vote on it.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. So if everybody's on the same page,
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, Robert Buckley, Raymond Bronstein. I have with me this evening Christine Hung from my office, an associate of my office who frankly has done most of the heavy lifting on this, and I want to make sure to recognize her for the work she's done. To my right, I have Tyler Murphy from Rhino Capital, the applicant. To my left, Greg DeBona from Bowler Engineering. We commenced this project before the board in April of this year. We've spent the last few months going through the issues that were raised by the town through its engineering department as well as your consultants. I believe now we've responded to all of the comments from your consultants, and it gives you a summary. I apologize, I have to turn around to look at it. We're here this evening to answer any questions you have. We do have a very short presentation, and I'll turn it over to Tyler to go through it. And I don't know if your consultant is here from the traffic standpoint to address any issues that they may have.
He is here.
Okay. So we'll do our presentation first, and then have the board listen to your consultant, and we'll be available to answer any questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
You want to take my seat?
Thank you. So just quickly picking up where we left off last time from our second hearing. On the 3rd of August, we had the planning staff and the comments closed. On the 5th of August, we confirmed with the fire chief that all of his comments were addressed. On the 15th, we submitted our traffic peer review responses to Beta. On the 9th of September, they responded that those comments were acceptable, and that closed that out. On the same day, we also confirmed that the town engineer comments were closed. I've got some left for conditions written there, and I have those listed later on in the presentation. On the 21st, this is last week, we attended the Conservation Commission hearing, and they approved the project from their standpoint, and then it brings us to today at our 3rd hearing. So this slide is the same one that we've seen in the previous 2 presentations. Just a quick refresher because it's been a couple months since we've been here. These are the existing site conditions. That's our site, just over 11.5 acres behind 30 Commerce. And then our proposed conditions here. This colorized plan shows, again, 87,000 square foot building. It's an industrial zone. We've got 58 employee spaces, 4 of which are land bank. It's something we reviewed at our last hearing. And that represents a 30% reduction over the code, which is in line with the waiver requirement for the bylaw. Overall, aside from that, the project, if we were able to blow up that zoning analysis table that's been submitted, the project's compliant with all their zoning bylaws. So we have one slide on traffic. Do we want to hold this to the end, or do we want to do this now? What's best for the board?
why don't you do the rest of it, and we'll do
Okay.
traffic one time with the consultant?
Understood. So site revisions, Greg, I'll let you go through those.
Yeah, just to recap, this were some of the changes that we made and presented at the last meeting. This was the addition of those banked 4 parking spaces directly adjacent to the building corner entry. We also added a concrete pad into the bike rack, and we basically blocked off the access from around the back portion of the building, except for, an emergency situation, changing the lighting pattern back there so that it's all motion sensor. So really, there's really no activity happening at the back of the site, and no lighting either, except for those type of situations where somebody is around the back of the site.
And then, I'll just talk about the town engineer comments real quickly. So those are the two things I mentioned before. One of them, the comments are closed except for these two items. One is there's a water line that exists on the 30 Commerce property near our property line. They'd like us to get an easement in place with the owner to access that water line. We need to tie into that. The second one was, and this is also in the conservation conditions and is typical, that you need to provide a SWIP. So we just don't pull that until we're ready to go.
Yep. So the latest plan changes, which were pretty minor, nothing adjusted from a site standpoint, no changes in parking, circulation, impervious coverage, anything like that. But we did enhance the plan with substantially more landscaping, a lot more vegetative restoration plantings. Previously, these areas here you see in the tan color were really just a lawn. It was just a sloped lawn. Now we've gone in with a final landscape plan prepared by our landscape architect, a lot of native species, restoration style plantings, and also reduced the maintenance path that we had down to the basin. So made that smaller so that we had less impact into the vegetative buffers on basically the residential side. So.
Yeah, and the reason for that was really just in response to town engineer comments.
Yes.
About peak runoff.
Yeah, exactly. It was a way to address stormwater mitigation and make sure that we comply with all the requirements, and basically just a nice way to do that with vegetation versus trying to incorporate additional mechanical treatments or anything else to address the stormwater. Yeah, and then as mentioned at the last meeting, we talked about doing a couple views from some of the residential, basically the backyards off of Trail Road. And here's we're gonna have two examples to show you of really what this will look like with building in place.
Yeah, and the only reason the 59 came up was just because it was a specific request made at the last one for that address. So it's roughly 400 feet of forest, and when you do a view going through that much forest, it just doesn't look like anything except what it is forest. It's hard to see through that much. It's longer than a football field. So the view doesn't look like much because it's just there's nothing to render through that much forest. And then the view it's from the vicinity of 121. This is, I think, more what the board was looking for is generally the homes that are really closer to the project and what they're seeing. And what you can see there is you can see the outline of a building in the background there. The buffer zones in that area range anywhere from about 100 feet up to about 180 feet. And this plan doesn't include any plantings that would be on our property. So it's absent that. So it is, again, when we ask architects to do this stuff and they're looking through that many feet of forest, it is difficult to see what's on the other side. But I do at least want to show that I think there will be some views and some glimpses available where you will be able to see the top portion of the building. But again, us adding in our landscaping and now even further the sloped planting that Greg just showed, it's really going to assist that greatly.
So that was really kind of it as far as any updates that we've made since the last meeting, except for traffic. So if you want, I can go back to traffic.
Yeah, why don't you go back to traffic, and then we'll bring up the consultant.
Yep. Do you want to come up here? Yeah. Any improvements?
Yeah, so this just recaps what we've done. So the hearing one.
If you just state your name for the
sure.
record.
Dan Dumay from MDM, Senior Project Manager.
Thank you.
This is the first hearing. We presented the traffic report that we did, full comprehensive report, safety, intersections, all that stuff. Then we responded to the resident and planning board questions, and we went through different things. So we looked at the project peer review was requested at the end of that hearing to confirm our findings. And they went out and beta was selected. So we're here today. We got 15, approximately 15 comments from Beta, pretty minor in nature. We're able to address them, got responses back to Beta, and they've confirmed that they have no further questions on the peer review.
All right, so why don't we have our consultant come up? Why don't you just take the last seat there, right at the end of the...
Good evening. Excuse me. Dennis Flynn with Beta Group. We were retained, selected by the town to perform the peer review for the traffic impact assessment. And as Dan had mentioned, we issued our comments, approximately about 15 comments on the traffic, the TIA traffic impact assessment. They provided their responses, and we found all their responses to be acceptable and satisfactorily addressed our concerns and did not have any further comments. The only ones I did want to highlight that there was one in particular that we were going to defer to the board for your consideration, and that was regarding the variance related to the parking. If you're familiar with that they were asking for less parking. I'm sure you're aware of that. They did provide some additional information regarding what would be expected to be the impact or the demand associated with parking. We found their assessment to be appropriate.
So just, Jen, and if you just pull the mic a little closer, just so it's
yep.
picking it up on the recording.
Sorry.
And anyone in the back can't hear. So just as an overall general, I mean, I know you said you had 15, questions. You have to go through all 15, but generally, what were you hitting on that was getting you the 15 comments?
Sure. So we had some general questions, reactions to the study area and the selection of the intersections. We did ask them to provide a little bit more information on Troll Road, the Troll Road intersection, what they expected to be the associated impact that intersection was not in the study area. They did provide a little bit more information and some additional detail and data as to what they expected to be the new trips going through that intersection, and we agreed with their assessment that the additional impact of that intersection would not be significant or one that would be of concern. Bear with me as I just kind of go through each one here. That we did. We did look at, I'll just kind of generally give you an overview of what we evaluated, what we looked at, both from sort of a safety concern as well as from an operational concern. And both the existing safety and operations at these locations are not what we regard as significant or one to cause concern, and then furthermore, the additional traffic associated with this development we would not regard as being such that it would create an additional undue burden to the adjacent transportation network or the intersections. I mean, that's more or less kind of the overview of what we got into. We did ask them some questions about the Route 38 corridor. We understand that's a coordinated system, but then again, going back to what this development is expected to generate in terms of new traffic, new demand, the operations at the old main intersection, Route 38, is not expected to be significantly impacted. Therefore, we wouldn't expect the downstream and upstream intersections to be impacted significantly either. We did ask for additional information regarding the turning movements. I believe what was initially provided was a ladder truck or a fire truck. We did request, because of this type of development, a larger, I believe it was a WB67, does that sound? Which was provided and showed that the vehicle could maneuver appropriately through the new site.
All right.
That's more or less it.
Okay. Anybody have any specific questions for the consultant, traffic consultant?
I do, Mr. Chairman, thank you. So did you review the lights at the corner of Main Street and Old Main there?
So we reviewed their analysis of the operations at that traffic signal. Is that your question?
Yeah.
Confirming. Yes. So as part of their assessment, they did include an analysis and evaluation of that signal, both as it currently operates and as it would expect to operate in the future with the new development. And we found that additional traffic at that intersection would not be expected to have a significant impact or adverse impact on the operations. It's, at the end of the day, it's just not generating a significant demand in new cars.
So I guess my final question would be, do you concur with what they presented to us at prior meetings as far as the traffic goes and so forth?
I do, yes.
Okay. All right, I'm all set. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else?
Just one quick question here, Mr. Chairman. If you wouldn't mind just explaining to me the comment T2, why only 24 hours of data was collected for the ATR, and you know, just so that I understand it better, and perhaps some of the residents as well.
So our comment was made, there are, in some projects, in some areas, both based on the existing roadway demand, the existing traffic, as well as what's expected to be generated by a development, particularly one that has a significant size. In some cases, and by the area type, I mean one that may see some volatility in the day-to-day traffic. It's not a not a corridor that sees a consistent pattern, day in, day out. You will oftentimes or sometimes see more than just 24 hours counted. So that just gives us like a daily assessment of what the typical demand is on the roadway. So we asked for a little bit more clarification as to why they didn't include, say, like a 48-hour or even a 72-hour. And, their response based, again, on this corridor, it does appear to have a consistent travel pattern on a daily basis, as well as this project and what this project is expected to generate. They didn't feel it was necessary or critical that an additional 24 or 48 hours was added on. And when we looked it over and sort of discussed it internally on our end and reviewed what they had to say, we felt that was appropriate.
What's that?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. And nobody else right now, right? All right. So why don't you stay there? That way, if we have anybody in the audience who has any questions, we can get both ends of the response. All right. So without anything else up here right now, I'll open it up to the audience. Anyone in the audience with any questions, comments, or concerns? Can we get the lights back up, please? Thank you.
I'm in trouble, Reese.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. My name is Tony Sequeira. I live at 232 Old Main Street in Tewksbury. A couple of things. One question to the traffic review. Do you know how wide a tractor trailer is with mirrors on?
Approximately
Approximately, yeah.
9-10 feet.
Let's go with 10 feet. All right, let's go with 10 feet. They crisscross. That's about what, 20 feet? Let's agree on that? Mm-hmm. All right. I live at 232. My road is 24 feet wide. As it goes further down to Jim's house, it's 22 feet wide. All right. So again, I talked last time in July, and I saw the notes. I'm not going to go over the same thing I went over. I looked at the report. I'll just cover some new things. So that's one thing right there. Safety hazard, in two tractor trailers. During your whole report, a 53-foot tractor trailer going west or whatever, past Walmart, has got to take a sharp right to go down Old Main Street. Are you saying he doesn't have to cross over the other street and make that turn and cause a little traffic jam? Are you saying that's possible?
I would not say they won't have to cross over. In fact, I'd ask the applicant to.
He's got to cross over. If he's coming down Walmart's on the left side, and he's got to make that sharp turn. You all know the city. You know that turn. He has to cross over another lane and come down that street. Again, and I'm going to go back to this report you guys have. The crash summary. All right? 2017, 11 crashes. 2018, 7 crashes. 2019, 5 crashes. Now, look at this. It dropped. 2022 and 2021, 3. Anybody know what happened in 2020? Yeah. Nobody was on the road. Nobody was on the road. It's right here. You guys have it. It's right here. You weren't on the road. But you go a couple years before, 5, 7, 11 accidents. Again, it's in writing. all right? I'm not going to we'll focus more on something else. Again, on this report, paragraph, it says pedestrians and alternative transportation. I'm assuming they're talking about the bus stop on Main Street. And then it says there's adequate sidewalk. The sidewalk stops after Town Fair Tire. Anybody that knows that street, the sidewalk stops at Town Fair Tire. So after Town Fair Tire, what do? What do those people do? They're walking on the streets. They're walking on the streets to get down that road. Again, another safety hazard if tractor trailers are going up and down. All right? Again, all this in the report. I'm not making any of this up. It's all in the report. Sidewalks, safety, the street narrows, the crash summary. It's all here. It's still not safe. I appreciate the independent. I was pretty excited when they reached out to you, but you brought nothing that I would feel and the residents would feel this is still a safe bet. Granted, it's a nice building. Beautiful building. But to get down that street is a safety hazard. There was another one also on your report. The busiest time is between 4 and 6 p.m. And there's a child care center, daycare center, whatever you want to call it, right at that lights. What do you think happens between 4 and 6? The parents are picking up their kids at that time. And on your report, that's when it's the busiest of all, at that time. That's when the parents are picking up their kids. Again, safety. I mean, it's all right in front of you, all right? It's all right in front of you. They can't make that turn. It's unsafe. The street narrows. People are walking on the streets. What else is there to discuss? All right? I've been here 19 years. That road is just unsafe. And to add, I mean, didn't even mention the tractor, 53-foot tractor trailer make that turn. Pretty much impossible. He has to stop traffic to make that turn. Granted, 495, it's an easy left. Coming down the other road, impossible. He's going to have to stop traffic on both sides. Again, it's the same thing. There's no surprises here. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can we respond to that?
Sure. Well, somebody's coming up to the podium, so you can go ahead right now if you want.
Yeah, so in terms of the crashes, you can start with that one. The 17, 18, and 19 were in fact higher. We got that comp from peer review, so we kind of looked at 17, 18, 19 as those 3 years, and then looked at the crash rate, and it still falls slightly below the District 4 average for crashes, so it's still not of concern, even if you strip out the 20 and 21 data.
Just out of curiosity, and I doubt it's in there, but I'm just asking. It doesn't tell you in there how many of those crashes actually involve trucks versus
I
cars.
was going to ask
It
that.
would tell you.
Do you have
I
that?
can look it up. So passenger car, pickup truck.
I'm looking for tractor trailers.
Yeah, I don't see any yet. There was a motorcycle.
He probably should have fit.
Just quickly looking, there's zero.
Zero?
No
That-
trucks.
That involve a tractor trailer.
Correct.
Of all the accidents for those,
And that includes
Big years?
the 5 years of data.
so 17, 18, 19, 20, 21.
Yep. And the 2021 data, per conversation we just had with Mass DOT, the 2020 data for crashes is down obviously due to the pandemic. The 20.
Yeah, I mean, I can
The 2021
throw out those two
rebounded,
as far as, they're not going to be the most
Yeah.
telling.
So you
Those
can go
other
back
three are the
to-
ones I'm kind of interested in.
Yeah, so between all the 5 years, no trucks.
What's the biggest vehicle on there that had an accident? Can you
I
tell?
believe it is a pickup or a utility truck,
Okay.
sport utility minivan.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Hi, Gail Stone, 46 Troll Road. Today I was just backing out of my sister's driveway, and there's this truck coming by at 45 miles an hour. And I just pulled over and I said, look, stop the damn thing. They don't care. They're speeding. There's nobody around to watch. And another thing, if there's a car parked going out to 38, one car here, the other car is slipping by to go to the right, we're going to the left. And if there's a truck coming by, how are they going to get by? Have you tried that? Have you tried to see how many cars, how many trucks can go in and go out on that road when there's cars waiting at that light to go out to 38? Has that been tried? Does anybody-
We did do auto turn of it, and the left in and right out that we're expecting from the site to the 495 side can adequately make that maneuver with the cars there. The right turn that was mentioned last time, we also provided that. We don't think it's going to occur from the site. I don't even believe we saw it during our turning movement counts. But if it did occur, it would have to encroach into those lanes. They'd probably wait for those cars to clear out and then go in, is my understanding. But we're not expecting that to happen.
And what do we do if it's snowing? Do you know how hard it is to go down that hill and take a right when it's snowing? Believe me, I've done it many, many times. And as far as Trull Road goes, I've been here over 50 years, and I've never seen the traffic like there is now on Trull Road. It's backed up. Not that I care. Those other cars that are all backed up, waiting to get onto 38, well, keep waiting, because you're going to have a longer wait waiting on Trull Road than if you would around on 38, because the light is a lot longer now during busy hours, so you can't get out onto 38. So there, and I got my phone now, it's in the car, but I took pictures of the cars lined up in front of my house. So it is impacting Trull Road, definitely. And it's, you know, it's not only Trull Road, it's going to be the main road. I mean, people, on a Saturday, did you ever try to go up to 38 and go to the center of town? It took me 20 minutes from Walmart to the bank, TD Bank, to get to, our traffic is horrendous in Tewksbury. Horrendous. I don't know what we're going to do with all these businesses coming in and traffic. What are we going to do? Do you know? Do you have any idea what's going to happen to the traffic in Tewksbury? You know how bad it is. Now we have the Tree Brewery coming in.
All right, we're going to stay on topic,
All
though.
right, I know, but I'm saying more and more things are coming into the town, and we can't handle what we have now, let's face it. But that's a dangerous area, believe me. I've seen more accidents being missed than anything on that 38 in Old Main. It's a very bad area. I suggest you take your 10-wheelers or whatever they are and have a car, have a policeman on that road trying to get up to 38. Get your tractor trailer to see if he can come around that corner by the police cruiser. I almost stopped the police cruiser one day to see if they could do it because it's impossible. Impossible. That's all I have to say. Someone's got to think this through.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So 2 questions out of that. One, the two times she sort of mentioning, or actually maybe in the last person, but the amount of vehicles that would be coming, I guess, out or in to the facility during that 5, 6 o'clock time. What do you have for numbers for that?
Pretty nominal. We're looking at,
The microphone? Yeah, can you, just move over towards the mic so it picks it up.
so during the morning or evening, it's about 13 total automobiles, passenger car trips in the morning, 11 in, 2 out.
Right, but I'm not overly concerned with the vehicle trips of cars.
So
I mean, not that they don't have accidents, clearly, because those seem to be the ones that do.
1 to 2, about 1 in, 1 out.
That's what I'm looking for.
About 1 in, 1 out per hour, about 54 over the course of the day.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Saturday?
For a Saturday, if they're open, it would be approximately the same, but I don't know if this facility will be open or not.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about why the passenger vehicles are higher during that time?
Why there's more passenger cars than trucks?
Yeah, during the peak hour.
Well, during the peak hour, they'd be employees coming in and out, and then generally for like a warehouse or a commercial type, they use the tractor trailers usually try to avoid the peak times. They don't want their trucks sitting in traffic. So the peak commuter times, they try to, get off the highways, or they're in earlier or after.
Right.
Because generally used to the warehouse, I know we had mentioned the last comment, but the peak hour in the afternoon is like 4 to 6. Generally for a warehouse, the peaks probably would occur earlier around like 3 o'clock.
But for most of what the comments and questions we're getting, though, I'd like to try to focus on like the tractor trailer as the answer to the questions, because I could be wrong, but I don't think most of the comments are as concerned about the passenger vehicles that might be coming in and out. It's really more focused on the larger vehicles. So when we answer some of these, I'd like it focused on that. I mean, you can talk about whatever you want here, it's up to you. But what I'm looking to hear is, when someone asks that kind of question, talk to me about the trucks, not the cars coming in and out that people are coming to work. Because you could put any business in there and there's going to be people coming back and forth to work. That's not this, you know what I mean? You could have, you know, an office full of computer engineers. They're driving to work in the morning, they're driving home at night. You know, that doesn't matter to me, you know, as much.
To be very concise, it's about 1 in, 1 out during the peak hour for the tractor trailers. This type of use is to general dry goods warehouse. We're not looking at an Amazon with hundreds of trucks, so it's very low, it's a wholly different animal.
Well, also, if you're dealing with an Amazon, you're talking about smaller vehicles than what I'm talking. We're talking, we're
We also
talking.
have a fulfillment center.
Right, no, I know, but what I'm saying is, but the ones that are coming in and out constantly, you're talking about the smaller delivery trucks constantly for that kind of thing.
Correct. They also have facilities where it would be trucks in and out all day.
Right.
Like pretty much nonstop. That's not what this is either.
You know, you need bigger than this.
So
All right.
just due to the parking and the number of loading days, we're not even in the same
Right.
ballpark.
Okay. All right, anyone else? Questions, comments, concerns?
Jim Lewis, 10 Barker Road. I have lived there for 30 years. I'm now retired. I see everything every day. We should have all talked before we came in here. The many issues here, one of which, and I'm going to lead with my chin, on the safety needs. There are no sidewalks noted by everybody, and there are packs of people, not one or two, packs of walkers in the neighborhood in the morning and late afternoon. Singles are also walking up there. So to this point, with no sidewalks, the pedestrians are unsafe. There's also no bicycle lanes. So to that extent, anybody biking in is subject to driving down a road where they don't know who's coming up behind them. And actually, they may not see who's coming at them, because where I live, and it curves off to the left, is a blind curve. The town has come by and cut that back about 5 years ago. It's all grown out again. So when I'm pulling out of a driveway, or someone's there, right there, they may not be seen by that car, or they won't have time enough to see that car and get out of the way. And brought up before, there are no sidewalks after Tony's house. Traveling south on Old Main, we do have to be very careful about the speed in this area. It's high. It's very high. The speed on the trucks, actually the speed is 25 miles an hour. That's more of a suggestion, because the way people are driving there, they are coming out, heavy trucks coming in are going slowly. They're heavy. But when they unload, they're gone. They just shoot out of there, right past that blind spot. FedEx, Floorcraft, empty box trucks, some cars, not many, the empty big wheel trucks, and the tree service companies just fly. They're nowhere near 25. The issue here is there's 2 bus stops on this road. A bus stop at Rosemary and a bus stop on Trull. So we have, if you will, children as almost playing in traffic. I mean, it's very, if a truck comes around the corner, it doesn't get stopped, who knows what's going to happen. It never has. God hope it doesn't, but it's possible. So the speeding is really essential. It was suggested to me that the safety department or the police or something should get involved and do something about the neighborhood. And if you could, this is just 1 second off, please. If you could set up those ticket cameras, you'd make them mint. You'd pick them off one after another, and that would slow the traffic down. The other issue is, and I have to go out to the favor, it's been a topic in our house for 30 years, the hairpin turn. If someone's saying the trucks can actually get through that, go look at it, because the sidewalk is crushed and broken. The curbs are actually, 2 of them are pushed into the ground. And the other day, my daughter and I made a right onto Old Main, and sure enough, here's a truck, wheels are up on the sidewalk, wheels are down on the road. Common. That's the way they get in. That's how the big trucks get there. So, if you take that, and then you take an unfortunate situation, Trull and Rosemary were not included in the study as I read it. They should be. Trull, if you pull into Old Main and you're a truck, I don't know why they do it. They make a left on Trull. Good luck. The next time you stop will be 133. And Trull is a 1.5 to 1 lane road. So consider that for a minute. Somebody making a left going that way can tie up Troll, and somebody coming this way can't get through. It's a very dangerous situation, which brings me to emergency vehicles. As I understand it, unless something's changed, the railroad has said no one will cross our property from 38 down into your neighborhood. In other words, you can't come across the tracks. I don't know how they do it anyway, but they made a point. You can't use our land. Imagine, if you will, left-hand turn happens on Trull. They get to a space where it's one lane. The emergency vehicle's trying to come in this way. They can't. Our neighborhood is shut off from emergency vehicles. It's never happened. Who would want it to? It's pretty dangerous stuff. Let's see, what else do I have here for you? I did touch the emergency vehicle. Sorry, I'm working on this. The other thing is, there's no warning. This is my biggest concern. There's no warning for the pedestrians. I saw just yesterday a car come right up behind a woman with a carriage. He was managed to stop. What if he was reaching down? It's fair game. It's very, very dangerous. I've had a chance to speak to someone else here. It's just untenable what's going to happen. The speed needs to come down. The trucks, in many ways, are not an issue. The heavy trucks don't really go fast enough to create a problem. But they better be tight when they come through. There's bare way to get through, just barely. But when those heavy trucks get light, that's a rocket coming out of there for a ton of weight. So to the brethren here who live in our area, there are 7 houses, not 5. There's 5 on Old Main Street, 2 on Market Road. 7 of us impacted by this particular project. And this style of project was actually defeated 20 years ago when my wife took care of it. She got the neighborhood together, they came before the existing folks then, put together a package, and in the end, I think I have the name right, the gentleman's name was Mr. Wolf. He said, based upon what I'm seeing and what we have to do to clean this up, he said, I'm not going to go ahead with this project. So I just want to share that with you. This is not new. It's been here before. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it. And I hope I've been clear enough about how I feel about the dangerousness of this situation and what it's doing to our neighborhood. We have kids in the neighborhood again, and they're standing on the corner waiting for a bus, and who knows coming along and how fast. So, gentlemen, thank you.
All right. Anyone else? Questions, comments, concerns? Quickly.
I'll be quick.
Nope. You got to go up there because you can't just talk from the audience.
I just looked something up. I think you mentioned, there's only one on tractor trailer coming down. There's a large company already down there, EBP, the Solutions. Yes, and they have box trucks. They have over 25 to 30 already down there, and they're in and out all the time. And tractor trailers don't come from them, but they're received from tractor trailers. So I'm not just talking about the new business coming in. There's already some already there. So just fact.
Yeah. I'm not sure what you meant by my question. My original question was, we talked about the accidents, and I know there are already trucks down there, and as it stands right now, none of them are involved in any of the accidents at the intersection. That was what I was trying to figure out.
No, you just mentioned only his, but again, just about your point, an accident is an accident. Doesn't matter what's involved.
Okay. All right. So anyone else, questions, comments, or concerns in the audience? Hearing none. Anything else from the petitioners, comments? Consultant?
No.
All right. So I'll bring it back up here. Anything from the board? Mr. Fowler.
One question. I think I know the answer to this, but I'll ask it anyways. If the town requested if the town wanted to put a no right turn onto Old Main Street from Route 38 as you're coming down the hill, that would be a state approval, correct? Because it's a state road. Have either of you gentlemen seen this? Ever seen that?
You could do a no right turn for trucks. There's no real reason to block passenger cars.
I meant for trucks, right.
Yeah, it'd be a state approval. They restrict them in certain areas where they don't want them.
Yep.
There might be certain reasons why trucks would have to go that way. If it's going to a specific destination with no alternative route, then they would have to allow it, but
The alternative route is don't come off Route 30, don't come off 93 and go down East Street and take a left on Main Street, go to 495 and come in that way. That's the alternative route.
so if a vessel's doing a local delivery, you could use 495 as your alternate route from 93, correct?
Right, but potentially the danger with that would be, though, is anybody that then got forced to come in off of 133, because then they're coming down Trull, which is the complete opposite of what you want. I'd rather see them turn off at 38 than come down Trull, because because it got forced that way. Is that,
I would agree.
Yeah. All right.
Mr. Champ? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Fowler, did you still?
Well, I guess-
apologize.
I don't think, this has been here for a century, this road, and it hasn't been modified very, very much so in the years I've seen it. But we could do something about it if we asked the selectmen to petition DOT to do something there. That shouldn't hurt anybody, because truck drivers are smart. They'll find out, oh, we can't come down here anymore, we're gonna have to come down 495, even if we're coming out of Boston. So I think that's something that we could do, but has nothing to do with the end result of this hearing, I don't think. Thank you.
Just a few comments. Mr. Fowler, do you remember the previous project that ended up being withdrawn, that the gentleman referenced, Mr. Wolf's project?
Not really,
I was just curious.
no.
It sounds like a lot of the issues here really have little to do with what this project is bringing. I understand that we might be adding some stress to an already existing problem, but issues of sidewalks, people speeding, I live off of Foster Road, it's very much the same. What they've had out there for about 6 months now is one of those radar signs letting people know you're going over the speed limit. I'm assuming they haven't taken it down because people aren't getting the message. That's just, I think, traffic, and we've seen, a massive increase in highway fatalities. I know my morning commute going down 93, there's people going past me like they're on fire. I have no idea why. The pandemic's over. Take your time. Get there in one piece. A lot of the issues that are being brought up tonight are serious issues, but I don't think they really fall within the purview of the planning board, and I don't think that they're necessarily relevant to this project. So I think a lot of that just has to be separated, especially where a lot of what they've referenced was cars speeding, distracted drivers, things like that. The more serious issues of if two vehicle, large tractor trailers were trying to pass each other at the same time, and it was during school hours and kids were waiting for the bus or something like that, that could certainly be a dangerous confluence of events. But I think it's important to note that a lot of traffic issues, and I just heard some very similar issues regarding in front of the new school, when we started school this year at the Ryan, there's similar issues, and a lot of it is distracted driving, people speeding, what are we gonna do with safer sidewalks, things like that. The town has grown tremendously in the past 10 and 20 years, and I think we're just trying to play catch up here. But in terms of considering this project, I think we need to stick to the issues and the impact of this particular project and the issues that are being brought up that are general day-to-day already existing that are, can't really be solved by this board, need to be taken to the town authorities or state authorities that can.
Thank you.
Good point.
Mr. Duffy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, just to expound on Mr. Champa's point a little bit there too. I mean, another department would be to call and get the brush cut back again. So you have your line of sight on the curve there that one of the residents mentioned. And we all live in neighborhoods in Tewksbury here we have to live with disappearing sidewalks, and Mr. Champion just referenced Foster. I live down that area myself. There's a sidewalk piece missing from, Virginia Road to Kevin Street, and then it's missing again from Colonial Drive to Chandler. Now, the town has made tremendous progress recently with sidewalks, and they need a lot more. A lot more of them, because there are a lot more people out there walking, and which is probably a very good thing. But I also agree that, the impact of this project is going to add some vehicles to an area that's already having and has had some problems for a number of years. But again, we want to kind of stick to the program. And that's all I have to say about the traffic. But I do have another question or two for the applicants. I was just curious about the easement and what the timeline is going to be on the easement.
Yeah, so the way that I interpreted, Bob, I'm happy to defer to you and Christine, but the way I interpreted the comment from the town engineer was essentially as a condition. And so we've reached out and had conversations with landing management, and they've agreed to, and it's being drafted right now by the attorneys. They're also the seller in this instance, so it's a bit of a unique situation where we're not going out to an abutter or someone else of that nature. It's the seller in this instance.
For the record, I represent Atlantic.
Just gonna be near the microphone, just so we can pick it up.
For the record, I represent Atlantic on other matters, so there was that communication.
And one more question, Mr. Chairman, if I may. Another engineering comment was the stormwater pollution protection plan, and what's the timeline on that one?
Yeah, so it's a condition of the Conservation Commission. It's obviously something that's important regardless of that. And so once you file and file for the stormwater prevention pollution, you have to maintain the site in that way. So all the erosion controls have to go out there. You have to be maintaining the site. So typically what you'll see is developers and general contractors pull it usually somewhere between 30 to 45 days before they start, in the interest of not setting out erosion control months ahead of schedule because it all degrades and things of that nature. So the plan for us is to do exactly that, 30 to 45 days before we plan to start construction, which would be in the spring. If we were approved, is to pull that and file for that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Listening to some of the residents' concerns about traffic, it's an issue, no question about it. It's not just in Tewksbury, though. It's all over the entire country. It's the state of Massachusetts and how much we've grown, But I would like some of the residents to maybe reach out to the police department and do some of the speed traps that they have down there that might in turn help. It may slow the process down, make them aware of what the speed limit actually is, in case they're not aware of it. I hate to see somebody get hurt as well. It's just not something anybody's looking forward to. But getting a hold of the Tewksbury Police Department and have them come down and do a traffic, poll that's going to regulate and see what traffic is coming down and the speed limits. So that's an alternative. Nothing that we can do on this end, but just something to try to alleviate the problem that's down there. And it's everywhere. It's not just down there, but it is a tough spot, and I agree with you. So, all said, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. All right, so some of us, I think, kind of dance around this as they're saying it as well, but there's the kind of push and pull here of, this is the kind of thing that this is zoned for. It's been zoned down that way for some time. This isn't something we just did, suddenly out of nowhere. There are logistical concerns in the area, but those exist regardless of this project. And we've just had 2 different traffic engineers go through, explaining that, the process works if the process is followed correctly. It's not really for us, I can't really account for people doing things that are illegal, speeding. That's not our job. We can't really factor that in. When we get the engineering from, when the town engineer looks at these and tells us that the things work, we take it for what he says, that's how they're going to work. Is it possible something goes, amiss? Yes. But we can't think of it that way, because once we've gotten the information that tells us things are the way they're supposed to be, we have to move from there on, to make our decisions. And traffic's no different. We have to take in the information as we get it, and then just not contradict it just because we're contradicting it. It would defeat the purpose of having us have experts come in and give us that information. I don't doubt, what people see in the everyday life. I don't. But at the same time, it's very difficult to make decisions based on, the incorrect actions of others, or the possible incorrect actions of others. I can't control people speeding in that area. It's a different department. I'll ask that the town planner send a message from the board asking the police to, look at the traffic controls down there in terms of the, setting up the speed signs or whatever. I don't know who just set it up here, but, I would suggest to the residents you do the same thing. That's regardless of this project, because clearly these are concerns you had long before these folks came in, and there'll be concerns you have whether these folks get what they asked for or not going forward. So that's something you guys should be doing irregardless in your neighborhood, because you have concerns. So I suggest that doing that would be in everybody's best interest. You can't just blurt stuff out from the audience. You've had 2 times at the microphone.
I apologize. You crucified a car wash 2 months ago. You crucified a car wash 2 months ago on the traffic. You killed that guy a month ago on
And hold on, you're doing it again. You're doing it again, but I'm going to tell you right now, I sent them back to get a traffic study. They pulled the project. They didn't even come back with the traffic study. Not the same thing. Okay? So I'm not going to have people blurting things out in the audience where they just start saying things and then I got to read them in the paper because they're not accurate. I told them I had issues. I sent them to have a traffic study done. They decided not to do it. My guess is they were not going to like the results, which probably would have just simply confirmed what I said. So when we have people who just thunder out of the room yelling things, and then we're going to read about it, the next week in the paper because they think that that's fact, that is not fact. That is not what happened at that other hearing, and I will not sit here and allow people to do that. Back to what we're discussing here. So, when we do these, we have to go through the process. We had the independent expert look at the traffic. Excuse me. Like I said a moment ago, don't discount what people see. But again, we have to go based on, it's the same as when we do the turns for the fire department. They run the auto turns. Now, sometimes they're going to have a hard time making the turns but the program says it works, so it's supposed to work. That's how we have to look at these things. If we're being told that the things work correctly, we have to take that. Contradicting those just because doesn't really work, okay? Now, what I would say, though, and, specific to this, because, again, we have some concerns here, would the applicant have any issue if the board retains an ability, if it turns out that the vehicles specifically dealing with your property are causing problems, that we have to come back and we have to discuss what we're going to do about that? And what I mean by that is if it's the trucks that are coming in and they're identified as being the ones coming in and out of your site, and they're causing some of the problems the folks are talking about, like they're buzzing out of there at, 50 miles an hour and they're getting ticketed for it, we're going to have a problem, and we're going to want to discuss it, because that's something that whoever's running that site needs to deal with. Now, I don't know about the other project beforehand, but this is the one I'm dealing with. And to me, some of the folks have brought up is something concerning. And the only way I can address it for this is to retain some ability for the board to come back and say, okay, something's going to have to change here. You guys are not taking care of this on your own. We're going to have to deal with it. And, now I'm talking about things like restricting when the trucks are coming in and out. And I don't think you want to get into that problem. So it would be in the owner's or whoever's operating there's best interest to stay on their folks to make sure that they are not the problem down there. If other people are, well, that's somebody else's problem. But right now, you guys are the ones in front of us. And this is the best way I can see to put together, what you've brought to us, but also taking into concern, the residents' legitimate interest in what goes on in that, sort of strange setup of roadway down there.
Mr. Chairman, I was going to wait for you to finish, but I was going to make a statement that people have to remember that we're going to be a property owner in this area. It behooves us and it behooves our tenants and the operations to make sure that things are under control. So as a good neighbor, as a corporate citizen of the town, as an applicant that doesn't want to have the wrath of nuisance complaints filed, it certainly would be in our best interest to have that type of dialogue exist, maintained, and be creative. And we could be supportive vis-a-vis the initiatives of some of the residents that having corporate residents or corporate, citizens in the community or in the area support initiatives that the residents try to do. That has some gravitas, I think.
So that was going to be my other point, was, and I don't want to put this in as conditions, but it's more of a suggestion. The things like some of the traffic, issues in terms of slowing folks down, but also, and this gets really problematic because you are talking about DOT, but if there is going to be some push town-wide, resident-wise, in terms of trying to deal with that intersection and that turn that clearly exists from a time long past. It's referred to as Old Main Street for a reason. And it's just not, it's not a setup for, the 21st century. But it's DOT's thing. It's not Tewksbury. If this was somewhere, in the middle of Trull Road, okay, that's our issue. We got to deal with it. But when you pull DOT in, that's a different issue. But I would ask that in the event that that is something that is pursued, that you be
It's certainly in our best interest to do that. And I would submit also that the state is more likely to listen, not just us, but if other users in that area who traffic congestion or issues could affect the viability of that area. My sense is the state would have more ears and attention to that type of an approach.
All right. Like I said, the one that I'm interested in the condition is the one about, whether we have to come up with some kind of other mitigation if there's a direct issue with the vehicles associated with your site. So if you have no issue with that, that's something that I'm going to add to the list everybody's already seen if we get to that point. Beyond that, you've seen these list of conditions already? No issues with these?
No.
There's one waiver, is that right? And I've got the waiver as the master sign plan, but the parking's actually rolled into the permit itself. It's not a waiver, it's an allowance.
When you have, because we are waiving the number, I guess we're not, because we're keeping the force.
I defer to the town planner only in that she wrote my note and told me that it's going into the provisions of the...
Yes, with the signage, that is a waiver, that is correct.
All right, so other than that, so anyone else with any other questions, comments, or concerns on this? No?
All set, Mr. Chairman.
All right, then what is the pleasure of the board?
Motion to close the hearing.
I have a motion to close. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Abstain.
No vote at all, because you just,
No vote.
So, motion carries unanimous, 4-0. All right. All right, so that's the closing of the hearing. So what is the pleasure of the board as to next step?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we accept the waiver, and I don't know, do you want to do the conditions as a separate motion, or?
Well, they'd be on the
same
site plan, not the waiver.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to accept the waiver for the master signage plan.
Second.
So the section is section 66.2.10.h, and that's as to the master signage plan, required for site plan review. So I have a motion to grant that waiver And I have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimously.
Now,
All right, so let me just, I just want to check on this. So I've got, just so we're clear, I want to make sure, because I don't want to mess this up on the parking thing. I've got it down as it's going to be included in the special permit,
That's correct.
not a waiver. Okay, just so I'm clear, okay. All right, so as to the site plan, special permit itself, do we have a motion?
Motion to accept with the 9 conditions laid out by the planning department?
All right, so those are the conditions, but I mean, you're making a motion to approve it
Yes,
as submitted?
yes.
Second.
All right, so, and then the conditions are the 9, well, actually, they're the 10, because I just added one.
Okay, I'm
So
sorry.
that's,
yes.
they retain the right to review potential mitigation steps in the event that there are concerns that are directly resulting from the site.
And the parking reduction as well, Mr.
Right, which is one of the conditions. That was number, I guess it's, they put it as an other provision, so we'll just make it 11. That's section 6.1.5A, and that's the reduction of the parking spaces by 30% that will include in the special permit, so. All right, so those are the conditions as put forward on the motion. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Now, as to the land disturbance permit, because we just do them separate. A motion on the land disturbance permit?
Motion to approve.
Motion made, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, motion carries. All right, unanimous 4-0. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Mr. Chairman, on behalf of the applicant team, I'd like to compliment the board for their attention, but also the staff. The town staff was very attentive, very to the whole process and very responsive. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I'll let them know.
All right, moving on to agenda item D, 434 Main Street, Wameset Lane, site plan review. Do I have a motion to waive the public reading?
So moved.
I have a motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimous. Once you guys get settled, if you could state your names for the record, the floor will be yours. All right, it's going to take them a minute. If anybody needs a break for a minute, I can wait. It's up to you guys.
Shoot up a second.
Good time to break.
That was a long one, so. They were just waiting for you to go.
It would have to be a lot more than that.
Yeah, right. Tonight's a reminder.
Yeah.
We all set? All right, excellent. Gentlemen, if you just state your names for the record, the floor is yours.
Yeah, Dick Crow from Woodland Design.
Tom Schomburg of Civil Design Consultants.
Mr. Chairman, board members, we're just going to give you an intro tonight. We just got a review letter on Friday, so we're going to be working with DPW on those items that are in the review letter. But we were already here, scheduled to come in. We figured we'd give you the
Yeah, just ping them close, because they're not picking up very well tonight.
Yeah.
There you go.
We could hear some people out there. But so we're going to just give you a quick overview of the project this evening, and hopefully by next meeting, we'll have the issues cleared up with engineering DPW, because I know you don't like to do everything in one meeting anyway. So without further ado, Tom will walk you through what we're proposing to do, and if you have any questions on that, keeping in mind that the technical stuff is going to be at the next meeting, if that's okay.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
All right, so again, Tom Schomburger, Civil Design, representing Wameset Lanes. The project is located at 343 Main Street in Tewksbury, Massachusetts, and it's also a portion of the northern abutting property, which is an old rail bed that the applicant has a lease agreement to use. The parcel is zoned for general business, with the railroad bed parcel zoned as Industrial 1. In 2019, the applicant received site plan special permit approval for the construction of an employee parking lot and drainage system in the northern portion of the lot behind the existing building. You can kind of see the layout there on both the top and bottom images, actually. Yep.
So that's the lease portion of the land.
Since then, the applicant has reached a lease agreement with the owners of the rail trail and is looking to expand the parking area to the rail trail parcel, which is what we're before you tonight. This proposal would create 44 new paved employee parking spaces and an accessory storage building along with snow storage. The drainage system consists of a contact hydrodynamic separator to treat runoff and a subsurface infiltration bed to recharge it back into the ground. This system is nearly identical to the one that was approved in 2019. It's expanded slightly towards the building, but still away from the existing sewer site. A waiver request form has been submitted as part of the application. And as Dick mentioned, we've received comment letters from the DPW with a handful of comments that we will address, and we are also waiting on Conservation Commission approval as it is within the buffer zone of a wetland. And with that, I'd like to open up to the board for any questions.
All right. We'll start with Mr. Frataia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So did I hear you say 44 spaces in the back?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe the last time we had, what did we have, Tom, like 20-something?
It was about that, yeah.
Yeah, we had somewhere around 20 spaces, but with the additional land up in here, we were able to add more parking spaces. And basically, the employees will be, parking at the back of the building, and some of the staff and people that are familiar with the area. And so we've got it laid out so that there'll be an accessory building in this location here, which will add to some additional storage that we have for products and prizes and non-food items and things
Sure.
of that nature. So
That's a good amount of spaces, 44 spaces. That's a lot.
yeah. Well, on certain events, then it helps have the employees not take the parking spaces in the front and leave the front
Sure.
spaces for the patrons.
So I recall back in the day, you guys spent a lot of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars, getting the front section with drainage, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So a similar process in the back?
Yeah, the only difference here, Mr. Fattaglio, is that in the front, we have porous pavement.
Right.
With a big, large underground reservoir and a system that takes drainage from the abutting parcel. In the back, we're just doing a separate system, but it won't be porous pavement.
Right.
It'll be regular pavement with the Caltech chambers, which
Sure.
is...
Good. Okay, I'm all set, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Duffy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Kuko, I do have concern on engineers' comment number one about the very drainage that you were just referring to.
Yeah.
That there doesn't seem to be an as-built on file with the town, I believe. And I believe that Wameset still has a sum of money that was put down for a performance guarantee to provide as-built for the drainage. So that might,
Yeah, I don't know where he's coming from, because we do have an as-built that's been submitted. We actually used the as-built when we came in 2019 to do the small expansion to the back of the
okay,
pipeline.
I don't doubt that. We'll just have to get a clarification on that, you know what I mean?
Absolutely, yep, no problem.
So the only other couple of little minor things I see there are questions that I had is I know you were looking for a waiver for some parking. Do you have any current, does Wameset have any current ADA employees? Are there going to be any ADA parking spaces in this?
Yeah, the amount of ADA spaces that we need are already out front. These spaces, we
So
already...
an ADA employee would be able to use the ADA?
They would use the front spot.
Front parking spaces?
Correct.
Okay. I really have no issue with the sidewalk waiver in the back. I have no issue with the proximity to the lot line. Let's see. You know, the landscaping, I guess, where it's in the back of the building is probably, I'm probably okay with that. So I just have a question, though. Are there any, I think part of the reason that bike racks have come into existence, you know, part of that was like kind of the green building thing, you know, with LEED and, you know, that they would encourage people to ride bicycles, to work. And they would provide maybe a changing area and so on and so forth. And I know you're looking for a waiver on that, but, you know, maybe, you know, if you build the field, they will come. And if you put a small bike rack in the back, you know, for a relatively small investment, I would be reluctant to give you a waiver on that.
Yeah, all right.
I would like to see an employee ride a bike to work.
Yep, not a problem.
Okay.
We'd be happy to do that.
And other than that, I think that would do it for me, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Champa?
Mr. Duffy actually stole all my thunder there, so.
What's the problem with going near the end?
I thought I was gonna get the bike rack in, and then I thought he was gonna be okay with it, and I was gonna swoop right in.
All right. You're all set otherwise?
I am.
No? Okay. Mr. Fowler?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd actually like to hear what our neighbors from the florist have to say before I speak, because I want...
So wait, no, actually, let's do this, though. If you you don't have anything else, though, right? All right, so we'll do it in the right order, though, and then we'll come back and let you comment after. All right, so then just myself. So, Ms. Hugo, you mentioned that you think the as-built in. Do you have any idea why we'd still be holding the bond?
Most of it had to do with the tap out front, plus we have a special permit to do the 22 spaces out back, so we just kind of rolled the bond over into that. And that one, we were all set to execute that and start to do that work when the opportunity came up to lease this additional land. So we put that on hold and came in with this project. So that bond has been from the original 2014, then we did some modifications, I think, in 2016, and then we did the ones in 2019, so it's the same bond, it's just been...
Let's just make sure we know for sure when we come back for the next hearing, like, what's going on and everything, so that we're all on the same page with it.
I know there was a bond, some of that bond had to do with a water tap thing, which I think has been taken care of, but we'll check into that.
I mean, good time to kind of get that stuff crossed off if we can.
Well, I assumed that you'd want a bond for the new work anyway, so we'll just probably...
Right, but I don't want to keep stacking bond on bond and then never closing them out. If we have what we need and we can get what we need, I just as soon have a full file and you have a fatter wallet. That would be fine with me.
Okay, that works for me.
So, through you to your client, but yeah, you know what I mean. So, and this is just I guess more of a comment, is that, am I correct in presuming then that the reason for this is, business success?
Yes.
And that's really what this is, why we need the more space, but that's why the petition.
Yeah,
needs more.
it takes quite a few employees. I mean, obviously, during the week, you won't have that many employees back there, but when you have a busier night on the weekend.
But ultimately, it's not asphalt for the sake of asphalt being put down. This is for a need.
Right.
That's really my point.
And also, we get our deliveries through there, so even though we were going to have only the shorter amount of parking spaces, we wanted to pave it so that it's easier for the delivery trucks, it's easier to plow.
Okay, all right.
Because the fire department needs to get around that side of the building if they had to, service the building if there were a fire or something.
And then obviously, safe, well-lit, and all that for the employees, in and out, right?
Right.
Okay. All right, so
Yeah,
that's it.
it's lit up back there and so forth.
All right, that's it for now. Obviously, you've got some engineering stuff to take care of, so we'll get back to that the next time.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to confirm one thing. In Ms. Lauder's memo, she stated that the outbuilding will be no more than 20 feet, 1.5 stories. Is that coming from the applicant, or is that she's just stating what's in the?
I think she's just stating, and then they have to comply.
Okay.
Yeah, so if we went to get a building permit on that, because it's an accessory structure, it can't go higher than 20 feet, so, and it won't.
Okay. I could imagine where you're bringing up the floors, that might be one of the things they're concerned about, so I thought it might help to.
Well, we're going to find out in 1 second.
Yep.
All right, we'll open up with the audience. Anyone with any questions, comments, or concerns, come on up. Just state your name and your address for the record. The floor is yours.
Hello, my name is Chris Colantonio. I'm one of the owners of the Tewksbury Florist and Greenery, which is in a butter to Wameset Lanes. Basically, the reasons why we're here is, number one, we're curious about the structure, how big it will be, how close to the lot line. Number two, part of the parcel that he's looking to develop is right behind our property, and we're curious what's going to go on with the trees that are there, the forest that's there right now, if that's coming down or not. Also, we're curious if he's going to be dumping snow or anything in that area, and see if any of that drainage is going to come into our property, because right now it actually all pitches towards us. And then also we're curious because we use those greenhouses to grow, of course, a lot of the plants that we do grow are affected by light. So if he is going to take down the forest, or if he is going to put lights up there, that's going to affect what we can grow and what we can actually produce, which is pretty much the business we're in, which we've been in for 70 years. So that would definitely affect us if he's going to change the landscape.
Okay.
So.
Comments?
Yeah, so basically what's happening is the property line is right here. Okay, you have to come around here, Chris. So the property line is right there. So the pavement is stopping over in this area. This is what we're using for snow storage. This is the accessory storage building. And then everything from here, I don't want to shine it that way,
Yeah, that's
go in
fine.
your eye.
Yeah.
But everything from here going that way right now is not going to be utilized.
Okay, so this forest, the trees are all going to stay and everything like that, that's directly behind us.
Yeah, we might take out some that are kind of wonky, dangerous,
Yeah.
because part of we have an agreement with Univar up there. The fence is kind of, some of the trees are compromised the fence, and they're all into security, so some of that will be taken care of in there, but it's not going to be clear.
Okay, so basically everything behind us is pretty much going to remain the same,
Pretty much.
is my question. Okay, all right. And how close is this building?
Is it 10 feet, 15 feet?
It's 10.5 feet, I believe.
Yeah.
What's wrong on this one?
Yeah, I think it's,
Oh, 13.1?
13.1.
Okay. All right.
It's on the other side of where the fence is now.
Okay, all right. So those are basically our concerns.
Excellent.
Just for the record, I'll just say that it was 13.1 feet, and on the other side of the fence, only because you probably couldn't hear me from up there, so.
Okay, very good. Mr. Fowler, did you want to make, okay. All right. So anyone else in the audience with questions, comments, or concerns on this? Going once, twice? All right, I'll bring it back to the board. What is the pleasure of the board at this time?
Make a motion to close the public
Nope.
hearing?
No, continue this one.
Okay.
Thank you.
I mean, you can make a motion, but we're not going to get very far on it. So we'll continue this one. We will continue, I have a motion to continue this until 7:15 on October 17th.
So moved.
So
That work? All right, so we'll take that.
Second.
All right, motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. You guys see you in October.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
October already.
Close the public hearing, you don't do that?
Well, no, only when we're done. We have a lot of engineers.
Oh, so in other words, the next meeting, if I closed it, then we're done?
Like, once it's closed, it's closed.
Understood,
No more-
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're coming
All
back
right,
with all-
moving on to agenda item E. No, I'm sorry, we've got the wrong sheet here. Agenda item, no, was he? 3R4, Executive Place, Andover, site plan reviews, special permit. Do I have a motion to waive the public reading?
So moved.
Motion made, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made, second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. All right, if you just state your name for the record, the floor is yours.
Good evening, Peter Ellison with TEC. I'm the civil engineer for the project representing the applicant. This project's located at 3R4 Executive Place. That's a Andover address. This is a somewhat unique parcel that is split between Tewksbury, Andover, and actually a very small sliver in Wilmington. So we're here tonight requesting site plan review and special permit. The board may remember this project was approved by your board in 2020, about 2 years ago. Since that time, there have been some proposed modifications to the site plan, which brings me back here tonight. First of all, the original approval was for approximately 206,000 square feet of warehouse building. I'm here tonight requesting to modify that plan and reduce the total square footage of the buildings by approximately 40,000 square feet. 10,000 square feet of that reduction is within the town of Tewksbury. If you looked at the original plan, you'd notice that the second smaller warehouse, which is 30,000 square feet, has been removed from the plan. The larger of the two warehouses has been reduced by about 10,000 square feet, as I mentioned, in the town of Tewksbury. And the reasoning for that is to add a second entrance point into the building so that we can basically subdivide the building to have two separate tenants in the building. Makes it a little bit easier to market the property and find a tenant in the 50 to 100,000 square foot range. And finally, I think the last change we're here tonight requesting a modification or a special permit for is to increase the maximum building height to 46 feet and 7 inches maximum height.
All right. All right, we'll start with Mr. Fowler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was trying, when I got this information this evening, I was trying to put it together with the plan, and I didn't have this plan because it came in before. So I had to do a quick dance and went home and got it. That's my problem. That's my fault. But I'm pleased to see what you're doing here. It's the right place for it. Yes, it fulfills the need. And at this time, I don't see any specific problems other than something that Mr. Hardeman might have. Have you addressed the issues with Mr. Hardeman, our town engineer?
The engineering department did issue a letter. In my opinion, that was a clean letter. Really, no comments on the revised plans.
All right.
Supplement we got tonight.
Thank you. That was the other one we got. Thank you, Alex. So you've kind of dotted all the i's here and crossed the t's, so which is nice to see.
Thank you.
At this time, I will say that I am all set.
All right. Mr. Fattaia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have much problem with what you're trying to do here. You're reducing the square footage, but one question I have, any potential tenants?
At this time, no.
No? Okay.
No potential tenants at this time. So, but they do plan, the applicants do plan to proceed with construction as soon as this fall.
Okay.
So Their plan is to construct the building, and then hopefully, once this project is constructed, tenants will come forward and seek tenancy.
Okay. Any potential, predictable date as far as completion?
Completion of construction?
Yeah.
I would guess by next fall.
Yeah, okay, good, okay. With that, I'm all set. I reviewed all the paperwork and so forth. You're eliminating building 2 and reducing the size of building 1 as well, so, but the height factor isn't an issue for me, so with that, I'm all set.
Mr. Champa?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one question, and I don't have an electronic copy of my bylaws, so section 5.3.4, what is the permissible height of an industrial building? And then it says we can raise that up to as much as 60 feet at our discretion, but what is considered normal height, if that's the right word for it?
The maximum allowed height by, oh God, that was loud. The maximum height allowed by right is 40 feet, and then it can be up to 60 feet by special permit from the planning board.
Okay, and I thought I see 44.5 feet here in your memo, but I thought I heard 46.7.
Yeah. That's correct. So 44.5 is the measured maximum height from the finished floor of the building to the peak elevation. However, I understand in Tewksbury that the building height measurement is actually from the average grade. So the average grade with the loading docks is slightly lower than the finished floor, which explains for that roughly like 2-foot difference there.
Okay, and when we're talking about the height of the building, does that include all rooftop equipment, or is that to the top of the roof structure?
Yeah, it's the very peak. It's a sloped roof, so that's the very peak of the building. You won't see any rooftop equipment above that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Mr. Duffy?
Is construction already underway over there?
It is not, no.
And you expect to have 2 buildings built by next fall?
One building, yes.
One building?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the road leading up to that project, Burt Road there, that's kind of a long run, goes by Pfizer, right? And then who occupies the property just to the left of your entrance there at the end of Burt Road?
So Burt Road, as you come down, you have Pfizer on your left, then Gillette on your left, and then towards the end of Burt Road, there's a National Grid substation there.
Okay, so the substation is not on your property, right?
No, National Grid owns that parcel.
Okay.
The applicant has secured easements for access rights across that property to access this land.
Are you going to be having any other, I didn't see anything on the plan, but any exits into a Wilmington area, like over toward Ballardvale Street, or?
No, the property's really capped on all sides. To the south, we have wetlands. To the east, we have the MBTA tracks. And to the west, we have I-93, so there's really only one point of access, which is Burt Road.
So who does the emergency responses over there, just out of curiosity?
It'll be all town of Andover. That was something that we discussed quite a bit during the initial kind of permitting of the project.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is that a public road, that Burt Road going down to your property there? Or?
No, Burt Road is private. So at some point near the Pfizer building, it switches. It's Lowell Junction Road, which is public, and then it switches couple times to Biotechnology Drive, which is private, and then eventually to Burt Road, which is also private.
Yeah, because in the 1,000 feet leading up to your gate there, it's a Baja down there. It's a pretty rough road. Are you guys going to resurface that as part of your construction project? Or?
So part of the conditional approvals through the town of Andover is to improve that road to a minimum of 26 feet wide, and where the road starts to curve, it's 30 feet wide.
And what is the Andover requirement on sidewalks and an improvement like that?
There is no requirement for sidewalks on that road, just because the location of it. There's nobody on that road.
Yeah.
Right now, the only traffic on that road is the occasional National Grid truck.
Sure.
To get to their substation.
Okay. All right, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right. This is pretty simple for me, because with the exception of a small piece of this being in Tewksbury, almost everything else that has to do with this has to deal with the town that should not be named. So that makes it about as easy as it can get for me. So we'll move on.
Thank you.
Anyone in the audience with any questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, I'll return it to the board. What is the pleasure of the board? Actually, let me just check in. Slaughter, any comments on this?
No, Mr. Chairman.
All right, from our earlier check-in on this, there really is nothing outstanding to this, and this is basically something we've already dealt with once, only smaller. So, you know, on rare occasions, I don't have an issue if we want to finish this up, only for those, you know, sort of reasons. So, with that, what is the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to close the site plan review at Burt Road in Andover.
All right, a motion to close the public hearing. Do I have a second? Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. All right, Ms. Lauder, anything we need conditioned on this?
No, Mr. Chairman, I believe that there was the condition for a performance guarantee in the first iteration of this, but they're not doing anything more substantial in Tewksbury this time around. And as Mr. Allison noted, the town engineer gave them a clean bill of health as far as engineering is concerned. No additional impervious surface.
And our waiver is for height to 40?
Special permit to raise the height from up to 46.7.
And that's the right number for you?
46 feet, 7 inches.
Okay. All right, so do we have a motion on that waiver?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second made. We have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimous. As to the site plan review,
Make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to approve the site plan review at 3R4 Executive Place, Andover.
Second.
all right, motion made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you. Have a good night.
All right, moving on.
They were here for a long time, huh?
Oh, yeah. Moving on to agenda item F, 2560 Main Street, site plan review, special permit. Do we have a motion to waive the public reading? Motion made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Once you guys get settled, just state your names for the record. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Dan Bailey. I'm an attorney with Pierce Atwood in Boston. With me here tonight is Jessica Rosenberg, who is a partner at Sawyer Realty Holdings, which is the applicant. This concerns 2560 Main Street. It's a property that Sawyer has under agreement. It's currently, I believe, owned by the bank.
Correct, being taken back as we
Being taken by the
speak.
bank. Our proposal is to convert it to an age-restricted congregate care building, 55 apartments. It's currently not used, but previously it was a 78-bed memory care facility. So we're looking to go from 78 beds memory care to 55, over 55 units. This requires a special permit for use and site plan review under section 5.4.3.A.2.J, over 55 apartment building. This is in the new South Village zoning district. You'll see on the site plan that we've got the old delineations of commercial and residential, but it is the South Village zoning district. The proposal, we're not proposing any exterior changes other than some enhanced landscaping that's been recommended by planning staff. Most of the changes will be to the interior of the building. It's all in the application materials, but I'll quickly summarize why the proposal meets special permit criteria. Social and community needs, provides over 55 housing, adequate utilities, site is already served by water and sewer, no material increase in water use, adequate traffic flow and safety, including parking. Site is on Main Street with access to Main Street. There is a letter in the record from Jeff Dirk, who is our traffic consultant at VAI, dated September 21st, that concludes the proposed use will generate less traffic than the existing facility. Mr. Dirk projects that traffic will drop 13 to 26%, depending on the day, more on weekends. Impacts on the natural environment, there's no change because we're really not disturbing anything. Potential fiscal impact, the proposed reuse will make the building more valuable, will allow us to really put the building back into reuse of the building that's currently being held by a lender. Also, it's likely that these residents they certainly will be more active than the prior residents, so they'll be using the neighborhood services. There's a memo from Ms. Lauder dated 9/20/22 We've responded to the questions raised in that memo, including by adding things like snow storage on the plan.
Dumpster location.
Why don't you take it from here? You're the one that did this.
No, so we did our best to address all of these items that were on here that needed to be addressed. I'll go into high level. I don't want to bore anyone, but definitely let me know if any questions. But there was one comment on exterior lighting. We were not planning on making significant changes, but on a project like this, we would typically do a photometric study just to make sure there's no spillage, and make changes, based on that. Of course, if there were any abutters that had any issues, we would look at the landscaping to see where we could help with the lighting there. We called out where the dumpster location is on the site plan. Performance bond that was on there, which is obviously no problem. We're not making any changes to the parking. There's never going to be an instance where we have more than 19 employees on site. I think I did skip this, but we did also add in designated employee parking. I don't know if that was required or just requested. We have the snow outlined on there, not in a wetland. Bicycle racks came up. So we found a location inside the building and outside the building where we could put bike racks. We're having a couple market studies done to determine how likely, if we have people who are 55 to 70, yes, maybe we have bikers. If our kind of age demographic is 70 to 80, are people going to be biking? So we're not opposed to having bike racks. We can do that inside or outside. If no one wants us to request a waiver, we can definitely make that happen. And I do think we also marked an exterior spot for that. Interior, we're still trying to iron out the exact unit locations, but we could definitely make room for that. We did identify the loading areas, which again are not changing. We are going to keep that just for tenants moving in and out, just to make that easier. And then for the signage, I actually didn't have a chance to go over and measure the exact sign, but our kind of thought process was if the existing sign is in compliance, we would mirror that with just a new logo on it, and obviously get approval for that with our designers putting that together, and then get your guys' approval or whoever's approval before we put that up. And then obviously we talked about traffic. And then, fire protection was obviously, when we first started looking at the site, that was a big thing for us to consider because we knew that there was some insurance issues with pipes bursting. So we actually had a capital needs assessment done a couple weeks ago. And the building's actually in pretty good shape overall, which we were very happy to see. But the one recommendation was for us to bring one of our fire specialists to have the fire sprinkler, all those systems just checked. Obviously the town wants that, we want that too. We wanted to know if we need to include a replacement of that system as we price this out with our contractor. So that is definitely something that we would like to work hand in hand with the fire department to do. I think that's it.
Yeah, the only other thing I'm going to add, contrary to what was stated a little bit earlier, is we're under a lot of transaction pressure. We've got a very short due diligence period, and ideally we would want an answer tonight, particularly on the special permit, because our due diligence period expires
today.
Today, that's right, today.
That's some pressure.
It's what?
That's some pressure.
And that's,
it was a challenge when we've spoken at length with Alex about this. It's not typically how we like to do things. We were under the gun where the soon-to-be seller who's taking the property back had a number of other offers on the property. Ours was actually one of the lower offers, but they felt that we had more of a path forward than some of the other potential uses for this site that may not be as welcomed as something like this in the town. And so, They basically gave us like a 30-day, if you can get this done, we'll give it to you for less money. Otherwise, we're going to pull it from you and go to the other group that is going to do another use that we will not be doing. So again, not how we like to do things typically, but we're here putting our best foot forward.
Very good.
We are changing the color of the exterior.
That's in the rendering, right?
That's the blue.
And we evidence of how we were scrambling is the boards we brought tonight.
Yeah.
It's all right. Any rendering is fine. We like renderings.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were gonna do my architect was like, it's gonna take me 3 weeks to do the entire first floor facade. I said, just do one building, and everything will kind of mirror that.
Very good. All right, Mr. Champa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one quick question about the fire systems. I know residential usually has a smoke detector system, 120 volt with battery backup. Are both systems going to be in, or is it just going to be sprinklers?
So it is fully sprinkler now. There are smokes that were tested and they are up to code. It would be tested again prior to closing. We have not been given any guidance that we need to make updates to the smoke system. But the fire, we are looking at the sprinkler system. I don't know if that answers your question.
It does.
Okay.
And as a practical matter, we're not going to be able to get a CO until the fire department is satisfied.
Right. All right, good?
Yes.
Mr. Fowler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to flip this over to Alex, if I may. Very good plans. I like what you're doing to the property. I like your candor. And I just want to make sure that everything, that what you're saying is what Alex is hearing and what has been said before. Are we all set, in your opinion?
In my opinion, yes. They addressed all of our zoning concerns. Just a note on the signage that the building commissioner considers that any direct replacement of existing cabinets to be considered maintenance to the sign. So even if it exceeded the allowable square footage in the new bylaw, if, say that sign is 60 square feet and you're doing a direct replacement, then that's square.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then from an engineering perspective, the town engineer, his only comment was whether the traffic flow would mirror the not existing, right, prior use, or what the difference would be. And they very quickly got a traffic impact assessment from Vanessa and Associates, and that seems to, agree with their assertions. And then from a fire perspective, I spoke with the Deputy Chief, Paul Gododaro, about the site, and understanding that no exterior improvements are going to be made. Site circulation can be a little bit dodgy on some sides of the building, but they understand that there's really nothing that can be done from there, and the outside isn't as big of an issue as the inside. They noted that the existing sprinkler system has been a problem for years, and they're actually thrilled that someone is going to come in and kind of start it out from the bottom up and make sure that it's safe going forward.
Excellent. All right. Thank you, Alex. Thank you. All set.
Mr. Duffy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A quick question. Speaking of the sprinklers, are the existing sprinklers, are they the cast iron pipe type, or are they PVCs?
I think it was a wet system.
Yeah, it is. It's a wet.
Yeah, no, I know. So is it?
I'm not sure on the exact height.
Gotcha. Okay. Just curious on that. So I noticed that you're providing for 0.5 spots per unit on parking. Is that typical of a 55 and over development?
It is. We're actually looking at a couple other age-restricted developments, not in other towns, and we've seen it as low as 0.25. And I'm going to botch the numbers off the top of my head, but I believe that we have at least a 1-to-1. The bylaw is for 0.5, but I believe we have 1-to-1 plus for handicap plus for employee parking. So we do exceed the required amount.
Sure. Are you going to have like an office on site there?
We will. So
Yeah.
we'll have, there will be staff on site every day. We'll have like a management leasing office with probably three folks in there.
Okay. And I believe that's all I have. I do want to, mirror my colleague's opinion that it just warms my heart to see an existing building being reused in this town rather than, turning into another overgrown, wasted effort out there. So I'm glad to see it, and it seems like a good project for the town and for the area.
We're happy to hear that. We like adaptive reuse, turning something into something else that may be better. So, yeah, thank you.
Okay. That's all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Fratelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would definitely like to see the landscape improved.
Yeah.
Being at the site a number of times, it's overgrown and been in disrepair for a while. And under this current situation, you can understand that, but glad that's being done. I would definitely like to see bike racks outside. We want to keep those tenants pretty healthy and get them on bikes.
We're going to do
and running around
pickleball. Yeah, we got a lot of fun stuff going in there.
Good, awesome,
So.
that's great.
Get some e-bikes.
Yeah, sure. I'm glad to see you're doing the fire system because that's a necessity. I know it was a problem back in the day, talking to some firefighters back at the, that worked there, and, so that's a must. And other than that, I'm glad to see, like Mr. Duffy said, you're getting the site back in running. So we had visited that site, Mr. Duffy and I, when it was vacant, and I'm like, wow, what a shame it's being left to that. So, but it's a big site, and glad it's going to be used, and hopefully residents of Tewksbury will use that site as well again.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mr. Duffy, you had something to add?
Yeah, I would. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just curious, too, one more question popped into my head. You can have like any common area there for, with an exercise room. That's what made me think of it is Mr. Fratelli's bike rack. And so is it going to be like an area for, for the residents to be able to gather and have a birthday party, that type of thing?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So we'll have both indoor and outdoor. The idea is to have this be like a very high amenity rich building, not the scale that you would see at like an independent living or assisted living. There are like two interior, there's two kind of interior courtyards if you're looking at the building like to the left. So there we're gonna have tons of seating, those will be kind of just more communal seating areas. And then to the right of that building, we have the bigger space. We ideally would like to do pickleball, shuffleboard, communal sitting, grills. I don't know if we haven't really gone there yet, but that's the idea. And then inside, we're gonna have gym. We're actually gonna have, there's currently a space that's built out as like a hair salon. That space within the building is gonna get taken over because we're gonna create a unit there, but we are gonna have a space for if someone's hairstylist wants to come in and do that. We will also have a community room that can be rented out for parties, stuff like that. And then when you walk, you guys have been to that building recently, when you walk in and you kind of that reception, there's the fireplace, that whole area is kind of staying the same. So that whole area is like kind of communal area. And then where we're really like building the added rooms are, kitchen, and other underutilized spaces like the administrative wings and stuff like that.
Thank you.
They are small units, so we want to have
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
space.
All right. So I guess it's along the same lines, but it is, to me, it feels very, kind of no-brainer that you have a site kind of basically just altering what it already kind of was without a whole lot having to be done.
Right.
And getting the property back online relatively quickly from its sort of shutting down. We've had plenty of properties that have, things have fallen through or whatever that sit around and, to Mr. Fratelli's point, sort of get overgrown. We're chasing people and whatnot for how it looks. That's an entranceway to Tewksbury.
Yeah.
We've had other sites down there where we've spoken to them about, when they came in for things, how we wanted it to look because, it's a gateway into the town.
Yeah.
This is one of those sites because you're right there on the line. The way it looks now obviously is unfortunate. Having something replace that and have it not be, something, oversized or, otherwise raise the ire of, whomever is sort of no-brainer to me. And, added bonus is the comment that you're actually potentially reducing traffic, not increasing it, which is always something that folks like to hear in the town, especially, if it involves 38. So, for those reasons, I'm certainly on board. I was going to try to solve your bike rack problem as well, in that I would have just said, without passing judgment on the residents of whether they'd use the bikes or not, family who might visit.
Yes, exactly.
So why not have it for that reason,
Yeah.
So, I think it's if nothing else, it's a decorative thing, but,
Yeah.
if it's used, that's great. But I think it's better to have than not, for those reasons.
We agree.
Otherwise, I don't think I have anything else for this, so with that, I'll open it up to the audience. Anyone in the audience with any questions, comments, or concerns on this?
I think we scared everyone.
Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. I'll say that, regardless of what they had mentioned during, their presentation about having a time crunch, I would have been in favor of moving this along anyways, because they are not doing all that much there. And this is to get something, going again on a rather significant sized parcel, right on 38, right at our doorway. So I would have been fine with that as well. Does anyone have any issue with moving this along?
Not at all.
None here.
Not at all, good.
Okay, so with that, then what is the pleasure of the board?
Motion to close
Mr.
the
Chairman,
hearing.
Oh, wait, Mr.
If
Duffy.
I could just add one more thing. I know that these, in the town planner's report here, she mentioned a few things that we may consider along with this, and one of them was no outside banners or flags on site. Now, I sort of get that, but I mean, if you wanted to have a flagpole with an American flag,
That was referring more to the feather banners and kind of the temporary measures
Like
that.
move here and like open.
Yeah, kind
and
of,
Like that
yeah.
kind of stuff.
Okay.
It'd be a weird thing to do a grand opening for.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We don't have any plans to do anything like that. So.
Imagine you would.
Yeah.
So we'll put that in, and then that'll take care of it.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah,
Thanks for that
I agree.
clarification.
So we have Mr. Fowler's motion to close on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. As to the site plan review special permit, what is the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve the special permit?
All right, so we have the motion to approve as submitted, and just that one comment on the flags. A motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimous. Good luck.
Thank you guys so much.
All right. Moving on to, where's my sheet? I just lost it. Was here agenda for a second? I must have scooped it up in my papers.
Which one would you like?
The current, whatever we have here. All right, moving on to, so we just have G1. Okay, so administrative items continued. 1821 Main Street concept plan review.
Thank you. You get these in. We're always holding you late.
All right, just state your name, the record, the floor is yours.
Great. Jim Hanley, Civil Design Consultants. I guess I'll give you a little bit of background here first, just to kind of set the table. We were here in front of you twice, once in March earlier this year, and that was to freeze the underlying zoning before zoning went into effect. That freezes it for 7 months. We came back to you in June. And we gave you two options, which I think were included in the information we submitted late last week, which were basically two concept options in a site plan format. One had 8 residential units with a commercial unit. which generally complied with the zoning in place at the time. The other had 2 buildings, 15 units, commercial on 1 floor. I don't know if you recall this, but we heard 2 things that night. We heard it was too dense, and we heard we would like to see some architecturals. And so that's what we've done. We've come back here, given you some architecturals. We've selected the layout that is the smaller of the 2. And what we'd like to do tonight is basically recap the proposal that's in front of you, and then talk a little bit about density, and then go from there. So, existing conditions, 30,000 square foot lot, 200 feet of frontage on Main Street, about 150 frontage on both Nelson and Newton. So this kind of sits between 2 side streets as well, and has the frontage between the 2 side streets. In the old zoning, which we froze, it's in the commercial zoning district. It's also in the VROD. And the current zoning that's current, it's in the village residential. So the concept that you have in front of you tonight has 8 units. It's pretty typical to what we've done over the last few years under the old zoning. It has 8 units. Parking was an issue that came up last time quite a bit. I wanted to make sure and make it clear to everyone that we comply with parking, and I know visitor parking is an issue. But the bylaw says that for the residential piece, you want to have 2. And we actually have 4 for each unit, because each unit's going to have a garage, so 2 of the 4 will be inside. So there's obviously considerations in understanding that, you know, 2 of them, they're going to be tandem parking, but you do get the benefit of a parking garage for each one of the residential units. We also have a small 800 square foot commercial unit proposed up front along Main Street. So to recap the parking, 20 is required if we count the interior spaces. We actually have 36. So I understand the concern, but we are doing what we can on the site that we have. So every site has challenges, and this site is no exception, right? So I spent some time last week and some time today basically trying to figure out how I present to you the issue with density, right? We have a density issue here specific to this lot. Currently on this site, there's a 1,400 square foot restaurant that hasn't been open for a long time. It was built in 1936. There's also a 900 square foot residence, again, built in 1936. They look like they were built in 1936. They've gotten a lot of life out of these things. The challenge that we have is that unlike most lots that we've developed, which are either going to be vacant or have 1 use on it, we actually have 2 uses and 2 potential uses on this. The single family residence, they actually rent out today, right? And with some improvements, they could also rent out the restaurant. So from my client's perspective, that has to be kept in mind when we look at what a reasonable density is, right? Because it has to, we have to offset the development costs to justify taking those buildings down. And that's where we're trying to get to. So under the old zoning, which we froze, there is no density limitation in the VROD. Now, you guys have always generally had a rule of thumb, which is about 7 units per acre, give or take. It also doesn't have a specific affordable requirement in the VROD, but understanding we've worked together in the past, and you like to see the affordable as part of the special permit, blah, 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 we get all that, right? So if I look at the 7 units per acre, that gets me 4.8 units, right? So if I round up to 5, that gets me 5 units, one of which is going to be affordable. So I'm going to get 4 market rate units, right? One of those market rate units gets offset essentially from the affordable. So I basically have 2. I got 2 buildings out there right now, as is today. And that's what makes this challenging. And that's why we're coming to the board, because I'm trying to present why this is a challenge and why we're going to push for more density than maybe we heard from you guys in June when we initially discussed this. So the net gain is roughly 2 units, right? And that makes it difficult to justify the cost of investing in not just engineering and design and permitting and going through it, but the hard costs associated with construction. So right now, they have this property, it was last sold for about $500,000, and they got those 2 uses. To build 8 units, they're gonna have to invest several $1 million. So just based on the math associated with the investment that they have to make, it really doesn't cut it anywhere close to 5 units. So for the current zone, I guess the bottom line is it needs to make sense for them, and that's why we're coming to you to present this so that you can maybe try to give us some feedback on which direction are we going here. So just to recap, in the village, in the current zoning, the zoning that's in today, and so I'm trying to put this discussion and thought together for density, right? We froze the zoning, but if I look at the current zoning that's in front of you right now, in the village residential district, which is where this is, the minimum lot size is 1 acre, right? Now, the planning board would have the option or ability to reduce that through a special permit to 7,500 square feet. And Alex, please check my interpretation here because it's new and I haven't gone through it.
Would you like me to check it?
You could, sure, yeah. The use allowed on that 7,500 square foot lot would be 2-family. So I have 30,000 square feet, I have 7,500 square feet per minimum lot size. I could get 2-family if you were to be willing to grant the special permit. That gives me 8, right? Because it would give me 4 duplex lots on this piece of property. So based on the current zoning that's in place right now, not what we froze, if we came to you, it would at least be a discussion that we'd say, I have 30,000 square feet, we'd like to cut these down to 7,500, which it appears that you could do, and you could allow 2-family on that 7,500. That would give me 8. And so I'm trying to balance between the 4.8 that's allowed from the rule of thumb, not necessarily a strict interpretation of the zoning, to the 8 that could be allowed through a special permit, and I'm trying to figure out how we get closer to that 8, because I can tell you, I've worked with Omar probably since January. There was a big push to come in with the 15 units. I think it was pretty consistent. The one thing that was consistent was that density was a stretch in that request. And we also have this thing where we have a site that really needs some development, some investment, right? So looks like we could get 5 based on how you typically interpret it. We're looking to get closer to that 8, which it looks like the new zoning at least considered some of these challenges along Main Street and some of the uses that they have. So that's what I'm looking to discuss tonight before we go back and we invest more money in trying to put together a set of plans and then have the discussion relative to density when everything's done and we've already made the investment.
Ms. Lauder, I was told there'd be no math on this exam. It's a lot of numbers tonight. All right, we'll start with Mr. Vitalia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Hanley, I understand your concerns in the economics of the project, but density is an issue for me as well, you know? I mean, it's just, you hear it from residents in town all the time. We try to put too much into these projects and they become tight. They become parking nightmares in the event people want to have visitors over and so forth and so on. So even though you're allowing allocating like 4 spots per unit, if somebody has a party and has people over, I mean, where do they park on this project? They got to park in the commercial if they're going to park anywhere, or they're going to be parking on Main Street or somewhere that's not that close in proximity to the property. So, so that's one of my concerns as far as, and it's not just this project, it's the majority of projects that come in, you know, and I'm always worried about the visitor parking issues. We had one recently and now it's under appeal and so forth and so on, but so then the density issue and the visitor parking are 2 of my concerns. And although I like the affordable component, you're gonna discussed, but those are my concerns now, and I'll listen to my colleagues as well. So with that, I'm all set.
Mr. Champa.
Few questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Have you done a cost analysis as far as how many units is sort of your break even? In other words, do you need to do 8 for the project to move forward, or is it 7? I mean, obviously it's not 4.8, but is 8 the number that you have to get to make this project viable?
Where it stands today, it is. Yeah.
Okay, because option 2 shows 6 residential units on top, and one of which would be on 2, right, is that 2 floors on top of 2,500 square feet of commercial? So option 2 is here. Is that a viable project, or is that not a viable project?
Right, but there's 2 buildings in that, right? So the other one we were
So it's-
proposing 3 per floor for 3 floors. That would be 9, and then
15 total, I think.
15 total, right? Not even much smaller, right? But the math on this.
Those would be more apartment style or condo
yeah,
versus townhome style?
Right.
Okay. But is that viable?
Is the
Because that looks a lot less dense. Is that a project that you would move forward with?
I have to talk to my client about that.
Okay. Just, you brought it, and just looking at how much yellow versus green, I'm seeing a lot more green versus yellow on option 2. And while I'm not a huge fan, there have been similar buildings built recently along 38, so, so apparently that has somehow worked on other lots. The other question I had, just related to the parking, was when studying the 2 tandem cars in, I know this is probably a lot further down the design, but most townhome units that I've seen have, not only do they need room for stairs, an additional door for egress for fire and backyard and patio access, things like that, but there's also usually utilities down there. So I would question the second car in the garage as far as how viable that would be, just as a point of construction reference. That's something I've often, so maybe when you're doing your calculations, you might want to take into account that that second garage spot wouldn't necessarily be completely free space. And then I would just like to echo Mr. Frutalia's comment that what about additional visitor parking for the occasional birthday party, graduation party, and so on. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Duffy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Mr. Hanley, I mean, I'm just going to echo my colleagues here as far as the density goes. I mean, you're, and I'm going to add to that and I think we had this discussion the last time, was that the single entrance on and off of Main Street there, I think, I mean, for me, that's almost a deal breaker. I'm pretty sure that the fire department would have something to say about that. You know, I like the idea of the townhouse construction instead of the block buildings. But that being said, I think that unless that could be reconfigured in some way to get, an egress and access from Nelson and Newton Avenue, I think that there's just one too many units there. And while you're thinking about that, one or two too many. And while you're thinking about that, I was just curious, what's the game plan for the space above the commercial building there?
We don't have it defined well enough right now. Yeah, so we'd be looking at, we have enough parking there for like 800 to 1,000 square feet of commercial. So that's what we'd be providing.
Do you have any idea who you might put in that commercial space? Because as you're probably
difficult, yeah, it's difficult. Those
as
are
you're
always
probably
very
aware,
difficult.
there's a lot of concern among residents here in Tewksbury that there's already a whole bunch of storefront, empty storefront along the way, and I know that's not your fault.
Yeah.
But I think that the effort the effort has been somewhat lacking too, to actually find somebody for those spaces. You know, and I understand the difficulty that there just might not be a huge market right now for the small retail spaces like that, but, you know, that might be something that might enhance the project a little bit. And I think that's about all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Fowler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll say this again, about the commercial properties on Main Street. You mentioned the fact that you build it, they will come. These will be built, and these will be occupied. It might take a while. Some of them have already being occupied. So I wouldn't be too quick to shoot them down because of what the people say about too many vacant parcels on Main Street. We knew going in, the residentials would be scooped up, for lack of a better word. So I would not be negative against them until such a time as we let time pass. And as far as the fire department is concerned, let them tell us that they can't get in here. We can't say that. That there are things that could be done even if you had to modify it for a turnaround. Not a rotary or a roundabout, but a turnaround where they come in, take a 90, swing back out. I can see two places right here that could be modified on this plan that could take place. And my last thing is down below in the first floor, the garage area. If you look at the size of the car would fit in the living room here on this plan. I don't know if you can see it on yours. But behind that are the bedrooms. So if you look at the first floor plan and you superimpose those two cars into the living area, what's behind it? Two bedrooms. That would be down cellar also. So that, to me, would be enough area for storage, utilities, and whatever is necessary for the stairs. So, just a few observations. Thank you.
All right, so, you know, I'm trying to, you know, remember back, but I'm of the impression I prefer option 2. I'm pretty sure I liked option 2 back then. I think I disliked option 2 probably with 15 units was probably the problem. So, you know, I'm not sure, you know, and how it spaces out and whatnot, but I mean, you know, is there a, you know, or I don't know whether you've run the numbers on that because you had numbers on all the rest of it, but is there a break number on the 2 buildings?
Yeah, again, so we've come with one option. We can revisit that second option. But we came with this.
I'm just not a huge fan of the option 1 because it's the one we have the most problem with in sort of wrapping our heads around how it really works, or lays out, I guess would be more accurate. You know, it's a lot to fit in, and a lot that needs to be accomplished. That, you know, it feels like the two building approach, you know, works better. But more so if it's, you know, I'm trying to remember what's the other one that we have that actually comes off the 2 side streets. Marshall and what is it?
I think it's 725 or 743 Main Street, comes off of Marshall and Jerome.
Jerome. You know, so, you know, whether that could be done here with Nelson and Newton, and then you eliminate the problem of Main Street completely. I know that worked for them. You know, we haven't done that everywhere, obviously, but you know, with the way those streets line up and the property lines up, sometimes that coming in through the sort of the back, you know, in one side out the other, the flow just works better. You know, because then we're still sticking with 2 roads or two places coming out or in off of 38, rather than introducing two more, basically, an in and out dead middle between those two other roads. You know, so like I said, I'd be more interested in the two building approach, you know, and where the number falls for those. I'm guessing it's probably not 8, but, you know, because I know in this version, if I'm looking at this right, you would have needed 39 spaces, and you're 11 short in this design.
Yep.
And I don't know how that changes or doesn't change if you change to those ins and outs, you know, one way, either way, and how the buildings could be, you know, repositioned once you don't have that island and that roadway right in the middle, you know, and allow those spaces to stay, but say those entrances slide up, you know, where it looks like there are entrances almost now, you know, and you maximize the spacing that you have. And obviously, if, you know, you lose that in and out that goes out to Main Street, you're going to pick up some. You know, what that number is, I don't know. But, you know, I feel like, and I feel like you're hearing sort of the same thing in different ways about the density. And if 8 really is truly your break number there, 8 isn't sounding like it's getting a ringing endorsement up here. So you might have a problem right off the bat. If 8's really the number, and you can't have 8 because nobody up here is really willing to go there, or at least that doesn't sound like it is at this point. What's the alternative? Like, what's an alternative? So that, I guess, would be my suggestion.
Can you, to the board, I guess, like, appreciate the idea, though, that we have 2 uses that are on that lot that we couldn't do today that generate a certain income that has to be considered for them to invest, right? So the flip side.
I understand that, but it's, to some degree, at least from my perspective, is that's their consideration. You know what I mean? As to what they want to do with their property.
Right.
All I can really look at is what's being brought in and think about it in terms of what am I comfortable with.
Right.
If my comfort level and your break-even number don't work together, somebody's going to have to make a decision.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Right.
that's the economics of it. You know, it's not my job to make sure that the economics work on the other side of the table. I'll think about them. I'll listen to you when you make your argument about it and see where I fall. I'm just sort of trying to read the room here of, you know, you're using 8 as a break number, and if the 8's the break number and it doesn't sound like you're getting a lot of support at 8, we need another option.
Yeah, no, I get it.
You know what I mean?
I get it, but I guess that's part of the reason why we're here, right?
Because your other thing is you're not banking on, but one of your suggestions is that if you use the new zoning and came back in, maybe we'd give it to you at 8. I'm not sure from what I'm hearing here that if you came that route, you'd probably get that either. So, I mean, I know you're using it as part of like the consideration. And that's fine. I just wonder if 8's a problem now, why 8 wouldn't be a problem if you came in under the current zoning, looking for us to waive something to make it possible. It's not like you're able to come in and just get it. You need us to change something. You got to go from an acre to less, and you need us for that.
Correct.
So you're going to be trying to convince the same people.
But that would be a
way.
different layer, right? Because that would be 4 duplexes, and we wouldn't have a commercial, right? So all of a sudden that saves a lot of area. We wouldn't be entering from Main Street. We'd be entering on the side streets like a typical duplex at that point.
Well, let me say this then, without seeing a plan like that, I couldn't say that I'd necessarily be against that in losing the commercial component, because there is some trade-off here in what's been said in that, yes, sometimes those units can stay vacant for a while. So, you know, maybe there's a consideration of maybe this is one of the sites that doesn't use it, or doesn't use that version of zoning that forces you to do the commercial unit, maybe that you don't need or want to do. I don't know. Like I said, maybe that's another option to bring in front of us to at least look at. What would it look like to you under current zoning And where does everybody feel about that? Because maybe you're right. Maybe if you lose that commercial piece and the 8 fits differently, maybe we view it differently.
Right.
I couldn't tell you because that's not one of the ones you put in front of us, so I don't know. I'm not saying that I would necessarily be opposed to it. Maybe you might have an easier argument with me for the 8 when the space opens up a little bit more. I won't speak for everybody else, and without having anything in front of me, it's an air bubble thought, but if you're gonna have to come back with something for us to consider maybe on option 2, or whatever you decide you wanna do, if it feels like, as it does to me, that the 8 in this configuration isn't working, maybe it would be a good time to at least throw that out in a bare bones sort of down and dirty way, to see how people feel about it. I mean, I don't know, I'll let the other members, if they want to generically comment on that, because it really wasn't your
No, it
original
wasn't,
thought. We've
right,
sort of
yeah.
evolved into
Yeah.
it, so I'd be happy to let everybody sort of give a quick thought on that if they have one. Again, with nothing in front of you.
I guess the only thing I'd just like to kind of point out is that under the current zoning, you guys are locked in on density. There's a formula, that's what it is, there's no flexibility, right? If any site along Main Street that I'm familiar with deserves a little bit of flexibility, it might be this one, because of the challenges associated with getting rid of 2 structures that were built 85 years ago, right? And so, we have our concerns here, right? But it's part of like the planning process and what we want to see for the town kind of thing.
And I understand that, which is why when you say, under the new zoning, that, there's a little bit of wiggle room for us in terms of that acre versus, I can see where that argument would be a consideration that would cause us to, potentially move in that direction, despite our wanting to try to stick with the new zoning as much as possible and not mess with it, because that was sort of the whole point. In redoing the entire thing for Mr. Fowler, 5-6 years. You know what I mean? Was that, we try not to mess with it too much, but when we have provided with options, obviously it's in our, purview to consider them.
Yep.
So like I said, I'm just, I'm not trying to carry water for the project because it's not for me to do. I just, I generally try to get everybody to yes if we can. And just based on what I heard up here, the 8 seemed concerning to me as a path forward. So I'm not telling you not to, to pursue it. That's completely up to you. I'm just trying to say, do you have some other, options to put in front of us that you might feel a little bit more warm and fuzzy about after you hear from us, more so than you were tonight. That's all. And like I said, if anybody has any comment on that 3rd option, feel free, but, obviously nobody has to, because it's not really, it doesn't really exist. I just sort of made it in my head.
So what I'd say is, with a background in architecture, if a duplex was the same size as 2 units, and so I could definitely see the potential here to create a nice little neighborhood within this space that has a nice flow to it, a lot of private area, plenty of parking, and you could have a nice little community within this space. I think the potential is there, and I think I'd see a lot less objections to that, which is not the same as saying I'd be all in favor of it, but it would take away a lot of my objections.
Mr. Fowler, any comment?
You wanted to do away with the commercial.
Well, in that option, you would be.
Brought it up.
Yeah, right, yeah. Only because it's an option. I don't have a preference.
So if that was with option
3, well, under the new zone.
Well, the 2 buildings.
Yeah, well, no, in his
We had
version,
first
it'd be
floor,
4, right?
2,500,
4 duplexes.
Yeah, it'd be 4 buildings under new zoning.
Okay, all right.
It's just the commercial wouldn't be a requirement.
Could you do away with it here?
No, because it's the underlying zoning.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, not the underlying zoning, it's the
That way
old
you have
zoning.
a turnaround for Mr. Duffy, right?
I'd give a little comment while I'm here, Mr. Hanley. I mean, I don't have a problem with the doing away with this commercial, because we have so many units in town now that are unoccupied. You know, so and I think, like Mr. Champ said, if it's going to be a nice, attractive little complex there, then so be it. You know, I mean, if commercial was a big need in town, then I'd say, no, you have to keep the commercial. But I mean, I see a lot of them that are still vacant, and I caution developers when they come in all the time, listen, you're aware there's a lot of vacant spots in town that aren't being utilized right now, so you're going to build another one. What makes your design and your location going to attract somebody that's going to rent that space? So, and it hasn't happened. And I think you're aware of it. You've been around town long enough, a lot longer than some of the members on this board. So, I mean, you know what's going on in town. You have the pulse of the town with you, so and I'm sure your client knows that as well. So, but
Mr. Dunn, your thoughts?
I tend to agree with you, Mr. Chairman, that it looks like that probably, another option might be more favorable to, another piece to look at there. It just looks like that there's just, just too much going on with those two options that we've had to look at, and in the best interest of the town, I think it would be good to take a look at something else.
But I'd say, I'd add one other thing to it too, is that, I mean, I think there's some positive too in the idea that if you did work with the new zoning, if that's the option you want to at least look at, that there's something to that. I think that, we went through all the effort to make the changes to zoning, and a lot of it at the behest of the residents not liking some of the projects similar to this that were approved over a course of time. That you may find, I don't know, but you may find a little more support for the project as well, in that it's working with the new rather than holding on to the old, which is, you're right, obviously. It's just how it looks. And like I said, we'll review it however it comes in, obviously, under whichever rules it's here for. But I think to Mr. Fatalia's comment is that for some of these projects, not necessarily yours, or ones you've worked on before, there's been the feeling or even the outcome that the commercial unit was thrown in because it was a requirement to get the density you really wanted to have residentially. And that's, to Mr. Fowler's comment, they're gone. Like that.
Right.
Maybe under the new zoning in that workaround or whatever, maybe something like this accomplishes your hope and the town's hope in having the new zoning. Maybe those are more compatible than you think.
Okay.
Like I said, you guys are obviously, you got to run your numbers, you got to see what works for you, and then we'll review it however it comes back. I'm just throwing things out there that maybe have some sense. I don't know. It's up to you guys. So, all right?
Yep.
All right, so if there's nothing else, then we will wait to see if you have something else you want to talk to us about, and go from there.
Okay.
All right.
Good luck.
Thank you. All right, that takes care of G1. That'll bring us back to the town planners report, which we tabled, waiting for presence of Ms. Loud.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of quick things. I wanted to double check with you folks and see if you had any thoughts on implementing any of the available sidewalk fund, or if you would like me to consult with the town engineer. There's no huge deadline on it, but the money's been sitting there for a few years, and it'd be better put to use on a project than sitting in the bank. And then the other thing is, you had asked me to solicit feedback from other communities in Massachusetts to see how they handle obtaining as-built and see if they did performance guarantees. Of the 4 communities that responded to me, no one does that. They all tie it to occupancy. And I think historically, prior to having a formal town engineer and Mr. Hardman, a lot of the engineering reviews had been farmed out to consultants, most notably Joe Sirwatka. And because he was not a town employee, I feel like I can speculate that maybe we weren't holding him to, chasing down the as-built. So then this mechanism of guarantee was put into place. And it seems to have kind of, grown 3 heads. So I would bring it back to the board and say, we can work with trying to incorporate it into the occupancy permits from the building department, the building commissioner is open to doing that, or if you want to raise the minimum that you folks want to do for performance guarantees. We don't have to decide it tonight, but that's just kind of some food for thought to think about. The paths forward will really be making the performance amounts something that the developers will miss. Because right now at $10,000, when they have these multi-million-dollar projects, it's probably very easy to be like, I don't feel like complying with the as-built, and then, write it off. Or tying it to the occupancy, because we do have a couple of projects in town that are on technically temporary occupancy, because, push came to shove with, ultimately, you don't want a business to not open in town, which I think is another argument as to why the as-built have been tied to a performance guarantee rather than occupancy. So those are kind of the options, and I'm obviously happy to research other options if you guys have other ideas.
Well, for me, I'd like to see the sidewalk money get moving, because we just had another meeting in here tonight with comments about sidewalks and what, and obviously this money isn't going to those sidewalks necessarily, but, there's not really much sense in sitting on this when, if there's places for it to go, let's just get it moving. That's on that. And for the as-built and whatnot, I don't have a preference. I mean, if we're an outlier to the way folks are doing it, I'm concerned about that, because that doesn't feel right. That doesn't feel current to me. So if that's the case, then and there isn't a huge cry from the towns that do it in a different way, that they wish they didn't, then I don't see why we might not want to think about being consistent. I hate us being, unless I really think it's a good reason, I hate being different than the other towns, only because I don't want to put us at a disadvantage. If it doesn't, then I don't care. It's fine, we can do whatever. I just don't like the idea of anybody ever thinking, I'm not going there because X. That's good for the town ever. So if this is one of those things, then I'm fine with pursuing a different route. I'm leery of just jacking the price up, because we're already not doing what others are doing, and now we're going to go even further in that direction. It just feels potentially, a hand up to someone who's coming to do work here, and I don't like that if we can avoid it. But I also don't want you chasing as-builts for a decade. That's ridiculous as well. So something that gets that stuff done and puts us in, a reasonable spot amongst our peers, is not a problem for me. So I don't know, anybody else on either of those?
Mr. Chairman, I would say that it's probably a pretty good idea, but do all construction projects require an occupancy permit in the end? I guess that's a question. Everything, a remodeling project?
Anything that has a building.
I see, okay. All right, so if we were going to make that caveat that the as-built would do in order for you to get your occupancy permit, I think there need to be a little bit of a time between now and that implementation, you know what I mean, so that we can make it, do like an awareness campaign, so that applicants would know, hey, it used to be you came in and put $10,000 or $20,000 in the town's bank, and from here on out, we're going to do, you're not going to get your occupancy until you have it. There's going to be a little bit of a learning curve there, I think. So I'm perfectly okay with that. And that way you don't have to be bankers for the construction projects. And as far as the sidewalk money, I agree 100%. We should get that money moving. I don't know where really to start. I think if you had mentioned that town engineer there may be some gaps in some existing projects due to price increases and so forth. I would say rather than have too many cooks in the stew, that you should just maybe work something out with the town engineer and how to expeditiously expend the funds. That would be okay with me.
All right. Anyone else?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to see us continue the Main Street sidewalks that we're missing. I mean, I see that with the development going on Main Street with the Starbucks and the bakery and so forth, I think we'll see more and more activity on Main Street.
That's a good Good point.
If the sidewalks are completed, you know, from the walk down Livingston Street and around the corner to Main Street to the post office and so forth, I think that area right there, if we can get that section of the town finalized and getting the sidewalks in place, I think that'd be a plus. I would vote tonight to do Main Street myself, but not that it's going to come up tonight, but just my opinion, get Main Street squared away and do what we can there, you know, so.
And just to Mr. Fratelli's point, there is a project that the town engineer is working on to do sidewalks for the length of Livingston Street, so it hooks up with the sidewalks on East Street, brings you all the way down, and then you meet with Main. And you mentioned Starbucks, they actually poured their sidewalks last week, I saw that, so that's coming along.
Looks great there. I was by today.
No.
Oh my God, they got the tower and they got the driveway all paved and they're ready to go, cranking.
Mr. Sadwick, we're very happy.
Yes, he will.
I'll just have a couple of quick comments. I love Mr. Fratelli's idea. When I was on the Town Center Master Plan Committee, we saw between Town Hall and the library and coming all the way down to Livingston Street and then coming all the way back to East Street, we saw that as an amazing loop of that. If that was all sidewalked, we could really energize that area of the town and make it very family friendly, very active, really help bring people to the town center and energize our community. So I echo Mr. Fratelli's suggestion that we try to connect as many sidewalks on Main Street as we can, encourage foot traffic, and hopefully bring more people to our business district without having them drive from Aubuchon to, you know, each individual place, but hopefully they park in one place and can walk safely. And I think when the treehouse is up and running, that I think that's also going to bring in, hopefully, a lot of people able to walk home safely if they lose track of their limits. As far as the as-built and certificate of occupancy, you know, we shouldn't be robber barons or, you know, usurers. I think we should keep the limits low. I think we should tie it with occupancy, maybe put in a condition or make it just harder for them to extend. What happens is right now the cost of if they have to do a test of the stormwater system or if they have to go back to the architect and engineer for revised plans, the cost of those plans exceeds the cost of the bond. It's easier for them to just lose the bond. Right. It's pure dollars and cents for them.
Sure.
Right. So we have to figure out a way to get what we want and kind of hold their feet to the fire a little bit. And if someone is going to delay on their end, then we need to make sure they come in and bear witness to us and the town that they're going to make good on their end and not leave us holding the bag. You know, the little bit of money is nice, but ultimately what we need is we need everything filed. We need everything on record. Closeout, I can say from personal experience, closeout is the hardest part of any construction project. And so we should try to make that, you know, try to promote that as best we can with our builders and our projects and so forth going on within the town. But at the end of the day, they need to know that we have to have that paperwork. So whether it's a temporary C of O and then it's good for 90 days or 180 days or something, and then we have the ability to just have police and fire go and shut them down. You know, I think that keeps us business friendly while also giving us what we have to have. As the town, we have to have those documents. We have to have that closeout material.
If I could just add to Mr. Ciampa's comments there, I would like to see the temp occupancies be on a case-by-case basis rather than a matter of course, because if you give somebody 180 days, they're going to take 180 days and they're going to be scrambling. And not only that, but the information that you really need for the as-built is typically the work that's done at the very beginning of the job, you know, when during your site work operations and you know, it's usually long forgotten by the time somebody's bellying up to the counter to get an occupancy permit. And, you know, so once it's understood that if you want your occupancy permit, you're going to need your as-built, then a developer is more likely to do those as-built as the project progresses. And that's if we're going to go that route, then that's what we should be encouraging people to do.
Mr. Fowler?
I don't think, personally, I like the idea of what you're saying, but I think you better confer with the building inspector, because he can't hold up an as-built. He can't hold up a occupancy, because the planning board doesn't have an as-built.
The as-bilt's not really for us, though, as you folks, as the planning board. It's for the town to have, like Mr. Champa and Mr. Duffy noted, it's so we have an idea, we know where the underground utilities are, that they built to spec as far as snow storage goes, and the stormwater system, and the BMPs. And I actually have had preliminary conversations with the building inspector, and in other communities that he's worked in, he has tied it to occupancy, and he is not upset about holding up occupancy for an as-built.
He's not the builder.
He may not be, but some of the developers and...
Right, which is why it'll be a learning curve.
Right. Most of us would rather not have an occupancy permit at all requirement.
All right, so the only other thing was correspondence. Mr. Duffy took care of part of the correspondence. I think the only other one in there was the discussion on the potential proposed marijuana
Dispensary.
retail. I don't know, did you have any feedback for how that went?
No, so actually it's this coming Friday.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought it already happened.
So as a part of the state licensing and the proposed local licensing requirements, any proposed retail marijuana facility has to hold what is known as a community meeting. And they are to notify all of the abutters within 300 feet, so similar to the provisions for zoning. And they have to send notice to all the town offices, the planning office being one of them. So I wanted to bring the notice to your attention. Their plan is to hold the meeting this Friday evening from 4:30 to 6:30 at the Elks.
Oh, sure.
777 South Street, yeah. So that's going to be a meeting that is run by the proposed applicants with the abutters. Town is not involved. The town is only a noticed party in this, but I wanted to bring it to everybody's attention.
Very good. Anything else with anyone? If not, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
Mr. Chairman, before we go any farther, I wanted to bring up some old business, and that is the new DPW building that's going to be presented at town meeting. So, as a board, we haven't seen much of it. We've seen the original plan, and it was a $40 million project that's been downsized to $28 million, I believe it is. So I took the effort to meet Mr. Montori and his staff about the project and find out what is going on and how I can get behind it. So those plans have all changed from week to week. So there's a proposal going in front of the town article for the funding of that. So I know there's a lot of changes if you want to keep up on it and so forth. So we're going to be voting on that at town meeting. So some I think are pretty good. Some I think need some work still, but I won't go into all the details. But I'll tell you one thing that I discussed was removing the food pantry. And to my, pleasure is they did move the food pantry out of the DPW building, and it's going to be maintained in the site that it is now. And I was really glad to hear that at the last presentation they made. I don't think it belonged in the DPW building, so I was real happy to have it moved and so forth and so on. So, but it's a big project, and it's very expensive. So I'll leave it at that.
I was remiss in not running through them. So any new business? We took care of correspondence because I skipped those two before. Sorry.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, could I make a shameless plug before we adjourn?
Sure.
The Fall Festival is going to be held this weekend on Saturday and Sunday, both days from 12 to 5. Day one will be a touch-a-truck event for the kids. There will be construction vehicles, ladder trucks, various police vehicles, and helicopter rides for the cost of a donation to the Tewksbury Pantry. And then Sunday is going to be the regular craft fair with a live band, petting zoo, and over 10 food trucks. And that's going to be held on Livingston Street.
Now, is there an open house at the fire station too as well? So
Yes, there'll be an open house at this new center fire station just prior to day one of the festival. That'll be held, I believe, from 10 to 1 at the center fire station, according to Jeannie Martin.
All right. All right. With that, I'll take a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
A motion made, seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. See you next time. Thank you.